Imagine Ronald McDonald, if you will, the McDonald's mascot, the crown prince of grimace. Now imagine Ronald McDonald in a suit, but now he's dancing and carrying a briefcase at Radio City Music Hall in front of a crowd of confused onlookers. The horror, the horror. That was the debut of McDonald's Arch Deluxe, a burger meant to appeal to serious adults. But it didn't quite work out that way. Today on Weird History of Food, we're talking the inglorious saga of McDonald's Arch Deluxe, a burger for adults. Okay, ready to meet the Ronald McDonald variant from the Stephen King universe? McDonald's is the gold-arched standard of fast food. Ray Kroc bought the original McDonald's brothers out of their own franchise in 1961. Today, with over 69 million customers being served per day in over 100 countries, McDonald's is a Goliath. But in the early 90s, Mickey D's was on the ropes for the first time, steadily losing customers to burger rivals Wendy's and Burger King. The clown was dealing with an image problem, one that not even celebrity spokesman Michael Jordan and his short-lived but airily delicious McJordan had failed to fix. People were realizing that there were other options for their quick burger and fry fix, other than the place where their kids went to pee in the ball pit. According to their own market research, over 3/4 of customers felt the chain had the best food for kids, but only 18% felt the food had the best adult fare. Weird how anyone got that impression, what with the McDonald's rogue gallery of lumpy anthropomorphic mascots and their giant clown leader. It was pretty clear what the solution was, though it wouldn't be cheap. And it would require nothing less than a complete overhaul of one of the world's most recognizable brands. Enter the mighty Arch Deluxe. This new burger was born out of McDonald's attempt to mature both its menu offerings and its customer base. It took 2 years of development. Whoa, really? For a burger? And would end up costing a total of $300 million. That is a hefty price tag for one menu item. In the end, it aged less like a fine wine and more like a Big Mac left in a hot car. The Arch Deluxe debuted with the official slogan, "The burger with the grown-up taste." We prefer how the Wall Street Journal put it. The Arch Deluxe sounds like some guy your mother didn't want you to go out with. The adult-themed burger had one of the biggest product launches in the restaurant's history. With it, McDonald's hoped to shed its Happy Meal reputation and supersize itself into adulthood. Instead, things went horribly wrong. Up until the Arch Deluxe, the menu items at McDonald's were mostly made with kids' taste buds in mind. And let's face it, kids have no taste. As the logic went, grown-up palates wanted something more refined, which meant ditching most of the flavors that kids wanted to eat. The Arch Deluxe included a larger beef patty. Good. A large leaf of lettuce. Fine. A whole tomato slice. Not really my thing, but okay. Optional bacon. Now we're talking. And whatever a sweet Spanish onion was with a lone slice of cheese. All these ingredients got packed into a lumpy potato bread bun, topped with sesame seeds. To top it off, a super sweet ketchup, because apparently adults crave sugary ketchup. Diabetic-licious. But the real trick to the burger was in its literal secret sauce, a Dijonnaise, which is just a fancy way of saying mustard and mayonnaise mixed together, with whole crunchy mustard seeds. A crunchy Dijonnaise. McDonald's was going for the stuffy Grey Poupon crowd. But at a restaurant with a built-in play place and a bright, creepy clown, it just feels out of place. All those components Voltron together into the Arch Deluxe, a BLT cheeseburger hybrid with sweet ketchup, sweet onions, and a crunchy mayo mustard sauce. In 1996, the burgers cost a cool $2.59 each. To add their weirdly round piece of bacon on top would cost another 20 cents. Adjusted for inflation, that would be $5.20 just for the burger. The new burger made its auspicious debut at Radio City Music Hall, which, as everyone knows, is #1 on ListAdvisor's top adult places to eat food. With a marketing budget of $200 million, that's million with an M, as in, are you seriously spending $200 million on a burger campaign? The chain went all out. And what better way to introduce the new deluxe menu than by having their children's mascot replaced by something adults could relate to? Something cool and sleek with a professional adult attitude. For whatever reason, that wound up being the exact same clown mascot, clad in a business suit and briefcase, doing high kicks with the Rockettes. Confused guests were handed Arch Deluxes during the launch. Well, you might be able to chalk up one bizarre launch to a marketing misstep. McDonald's doubled down on their deluxe blunder with a series of strange commercials. Picture this. two businessmen in a corporate bathroom, doing businessmen things like shining their shoes and speculating about the special guest business speaker. They leave, and the camera pans to a pair of ginormous clown shoes in one of the stalls. Though we never see his face, the implication is clear. Ronald McDonald is speaking at a business conference. The Ronald McDonald? What's next? The burger mascot playing a few rounds at the golf course? Please. Actually, yes. Linking these adult hobbies with the new sandwich was meant to convince grown-ups not to be embarrassed to eat an Arch Deluxe in the boardroom. That $200 million marketing budget bought a lot of commercials, and the McDonald's marketing team apparently decided there were no bad ideas. This led to some confusing messaging. For example, in one commercial, two teenagers enter a McDonald's on a date. Well, that's too bad. The boy orders a hamburger, and the girl orders an Arch Deluxe. As the boy plays with his food, the girl grimaces and primly takes her first bite into adulthood. And the announcer declares, "I guess girls do mature faster than boys." Another ad featured executive chef Andrew Salvaggio in a kitchen rhapsodizing about the savoriness of his Arch Deluxe. Another had Jessica Biel rolling her eyes at her younger sister's attempts to butter up her parents to take her to McD's. But mom and dad's ears perk up when they hear the words Arch Deluxe. The campaign was kind of all over the place, like the last two seasons of Lost. Were the kids supposed to like the Arch Deluxe because it made them like cool adults? Were the adults supposed to like the Arch Deluxe because their kids told them to? And why was Ronald playing golf and billiards? It all made for one confusing onslaught of messaging for a burger that cost too much and had a boatload of calories. It didn't taste all that good to begin with. Original projections from McDonald's internal team saw the burger bringing in $1 billion in sales within the first year. That figure turned out to be, let's say, optimistic. And while McDonald's never released the sales numbers for the Arch Deluxe, we can confidently say it didn't meet their $1 billion goal, because the franchise went into a blind panic and began damage control. CEO of U.S. McDonald's operations Edward Renzi issued a defensive staff-wide memo claiming that the Arch Deluxe was never meant to be a silver bullet, even though that was precisely what it was meant to be, a hit menu item to lure in older customers. Renzi also boasted that the sales beat internal projections by 10%, saying only those who expected a miracle were disappointed. So maybe everyone at McDonald's. Miraculous is how you can describe what happened next. The Arch Deluxe managed to gimp along for 4 more paltry years, after the burger was slashed to a quarter of its price as part of McDonald's Campaign 55. Commemorating the 40th anniversary of the franchise's founding in 1955, Campaign 55 offered customers delicious McDonald's burgers for just 55 cents. But the promotion was confusing. Customers had to purchase a drink and fries at full price in order to get the discounted sandwich. Fine print that McDonald's hadn't made clear. So even then, the Arch Deluxe's success as a bargain burger came with a big asterisk. Look, we can sit and point fingers all day long about what went wrong with the Arch Deluxe. McDonald's absolutely did. Renzi actually resigned over the whole debacle, which has gone down as one of the most expensive and worst-received marketing campaigns in history. But the swift fall of the Arch Deluxe did not occur in a vacuum. It turns out the Golden Arches had overlooked a few key details when creating their signature adult burger. For example, designing a new burger and its accompanying ad campaign around the idea that kids think it's gross doesn't exactly make it seem appetizing to adults. Consequently, telling the parents of America, "Don't worry, your kids will hate this," wasn't the game-changing selling point McDonald's thought it to be. The ads also had an unintended side effect. They made kids less excited about going to McDonald's, which is probably the most blasphemous thing we have ever said. Children are highly susceptible to advertising. So when McDonald's ran a campaign saying, "Our food tastes gross to you now," they listened and stopped asking their parents to take them to McDonald's. The sad part is, the Arch Deluxe wasn't even that bad. It was just kind of there, like something you eat at an airport. It was also very bulky, much more than any other McDonald's sandwich, which effectively removes much of the convenience of eating a fast food hamburger. And if you try to eat a McDonald's burger with a knife and fork, well, officials can legally deport you. Furthermore, from 1989 to 1994, reports had noted that adults aged 45 to 55 weren't spending much on takeout to begin with. So McDonald's advertising was attempting to court a demographic they were simply never going to reach. McDonald's couldn't blame Arch Deluxe for all its problems, however. The chain had yet to develop its conveyor belt model of food preparation, but had begun pre-assembling some ingredients. This led to burgers that tasted not so fresh, and people were not McLovin' it. That, coupled with the crash and burn of the Arch Deluxe that took the company's reputation and president down with it, the brand did an about-face. The Golden Arches refocused on bringing out the kid in all of us. according to a senior vice president of marketing at the time. Basically, this is our McMea culpa. While McDonald's put the Arch Deluxe to sleep in 2000, the franchise has tried to revive it a few times, testing it as recently as 2018. In a few locations in Oklahoma and Texas, you know, the places that clamor for Dijon mustard, you can now even try a new and improved Arch Deluxe, now called the Arch Burger. Everyone else will just have to suffer in silence, eating our 2 all-beef patty Big Macs like chumps, and occasionally asking cashiers if they have any crunchy Grey Poupon. The McDonald's Happy Meal is like the Manhattan Project of marketing to children. Once the world saw kids lose their collective minds over that smiling little box and the surprise licensed toy inside, there was no putting the genie back in the bottle. But how did one of the most famous parent traps ever created come to be? And how has it changed over the years?
This is a McDonald's Happy Meal. Your kids will love it. It's food and fun in a box.
With games, puzzles, jokes, and a prize.
A prize?
Get yourself ready for a trip through McDonald's land.
We're serving up the kid-sized history of the Happy Meal. Okay, let's get happy.
Happy! Happy!
I wonder what time it is.
It's time for a Happy Meal at McDonald's!
In 1974, Yolanda Fernandez de Cofino, also known as Doña Yoli, opened Guatemala's first ever McDonald's franchise location, alongside her husband, Jose. Being a mother herself, Doña Yoli noticed that McDonald's had no reasonably sized options for small children, and 3-, 4-, and 5-year-olds were being made to eat the same big meals as their adult counterparts. Giving a toddler a Big Mac is asking them to grow up real fast.
This 9-layer gastronomic indulgence is known as a Big Mac.
What's more, getting young kids to make even the simplest decision can be a near impossible task, and the wee ones were often overwhelmed when it came time to order. So Doña Yoli decided to make her very own child-friendly option that had both smaller portion sizes and fewer choices. She introduced to her restaurant the Menu Ronald, a kid-friendly option that came with a burger, a small fry, and a sundae. It was an instant hit, and McD's corporate in Chicago took notice. Though it may be hard to imagine a time when kids wouldn't throw their favorite Marvel superhero in front of a train for a trip to Mickey D's, McDonald's had been losing steam among families and children for years. The clown alone was no longer enough to lure them in.
Mom told me never to talk to strangers.
Well, your mother's right as always, but I'm Ronald McDonald.
The now defunct Burger Chef, with its endless supply of free toys, and the immortal Burger King, seriously, how long has that guy been on the throne, had both made major moves to tear families out from Ronald's clutches. What's more, McDonald's had redesigned many of its restaurants away from the old white and red tile interiors and renovated them with brick walls. You know, like school. Kids love school. They were no longer as vibrant and welcoming as they once were, and kids took notice. McDonald's needed to pivot hard if they wanted to stay relevant in the family market, and Bob Bernstein was just the man for the job. Bernstein's ad agency had managed the company's marketing in several cities for over a decade. He'd already tried handing out free stuff to kids before, such as the Happy Cup and the Sippy Dipper straw. But even the cutest McDonald's pencil puppet couldn't bring in the Rugrats. One day, while sitting at the breakfast table with his son, Bernstein had an epiphany. Cereal companies had been stuffing toy prizes within their boxes for decades, and he noticed that kids would absolutely flip their wigs over even the smallest surprise. These boxes often featured games, puzzles, and jokes on their side panels. If McDonald's could somehow capture the wonder of the cereal box and sell it to their pint-sized customers, the company's woes would go the way of Birdie the early bird, meaning they were turned into chicken nuggets. In 1977, by combining Doña Yoli's child-sized combo meals with Bernstein's cereal box-inspired concept, the Happy Meal made its U.S. debut. Its name was a reference to a 1960s McDonald's jingle that called the restaurant a happy place.
McDonald's is our kind of place. It's such a happy place. McDonald's is our kind of place.
Your kind of place.
It was initially introduced only regionally for McDonald's franchise locations in Kansas City, Denver, and Phoenix. Man, Phoenix gets all the good stuff. Its first iteration featured a regular-sized burger, fries, Keebler cookie, a soda, and a Cracker Jack toy. The box the food came in also featured several exterior panels with games, puzzles, and jokes, just like those featured on the exterior of cereal boxes. Or should that be exterior boxes? The kids loved it, but the McDonald's corporate heads and franchise owners alike remained skeptical. They tested it out in regional markets for 2 more years before finally giving it the green light. And Happy Meals at last wound up in restaurants across the U.S. in 1979, just in time for a tie-in with Ridley Scott's Alien. Oh, turns out they skipped that one.
Are you sorry, sir, that you brought your son along to see Alien?
No, ma'am, I think he should have seen it. It's something that he needs to know, that things could like that could happen in life. That could be a true story.
Those first Happy Meals cost $1.10 a pop, and each contained a toy surprise. Kids never knew what toy they were going to get, making the Happy Meal the perfect gateway to a future gambling addiction. The initial prizes included the McDoodle stencil, spinning tops, and McDonald's-themed erasers. Wish we could have seen those kids' faces light up when they got their erasers. Later that same year, the Happy Meal put forward its first ever movie tie-in, featuring a Klingon commercial for Star Trek: The Motion Picture, along with a Star Trek-themed Happy Meal box. Despite its immediate popularity among families and kids, and thus its growing popularity with the corporate office, many franchise owners remained skeptical. Thus, while the corporate heads were busy giving Doña Yoli the 1982 Ronald Award for her idea, her second Ronald Award, following her 1980 award for being the first franchisee to host children's birthday parties, many franchise owners refused to sell Happy Meals at their own locations. They felt that constructing the Happy Meal boxes added too much to the already busy workloads of their employees, and the toys took up too much valuable storage space within their restaurants. Likewise, the Happy Meal came and went from individual locations for its first couple years on the market. And it wasn't until 1984, when McDonald's introduced the Chicken Nugget, that the Happy Meal became a mainstay in locations across the nation. McDonald's slowly phased out Bob Bernstein's idea of putting games, puzzles, and jokes on the box's exteriors, and they instead focused on upping their prize game by collaborating with movie studios and popular toy brands. In the process, they made some of the most memorable choking hazards of the last 40 years, like their 1982 partnership with Playmobil. McDonald's ordered 30 million Playmobil figures to give away with their Happy Meals, distributing 10 million of which after just 1 week. The figures were too small and thin, though, and they were quickly found by the Consumer Product Safety Commission to be hazardous for children under 3. McDonald's issued an immediate voluntary recall, and they offered to trade free cookies or ice cream in exchange for the bloodthirsty figures. Not a bad deal if you prefer eating sugar over plastic. In 1983, McDonald's got back on track with a partnership with Mattel. They made officially branded Hot Wheels for their Happy Meals, along with the Barbie Loves McDonald's playset for toy stores across the country.
Barbie loves McDonald's.
Could I have a Big Mac to go?
The rest of the 80s saw media tie-ins with Ghostbusters, the Berenstein Bears, Muppet Babies, My Little Pony, and The Little Mermaid. They also had food changeables, which were basically just Transformers that turned into McDonald's foods rather than high-speed vehicles. Apparently, the war for Cybertron was decided by fries and a Coke. McNugget Buddies, vague Mr. Potato Head knockoffs, but in nugget form, and Jungle Book wind-ups, which closed out the decade with walking versions of Ka, Shere Khan, and King Louie.
Where do the stars of Sega Sonic 3 go when the game's over?
Sonic? Are you guys in there?
Hey, here's a hint. They're at McDonald's.
The 90s kicked things off with a Super Mario Bros. 3 partnership, which put plastic Marios, Luigis, Goombas, and Koopas in households everywhere, right alongside all the Nintendos that had recently arrived to destroy everyone's reading comprehension. These were then shortly followed by 2 separate DC comic tie-ins, one of which was considerably better received than the other. Toys featuring Looney Tunes characters in classic DC superhero costumes debuted in 1991, in case you ever wanted to see Bugs and Daffy juiced up like a pair of South Florida bouncers. 1 year later, the Golden Arches released what should have been a golden tie-in with the 1992 blockbuster Batman Returns, a movie that is very much not for kids.
It was very violent. It was a total attack against kids, the whole movie.
Parents and Christian groups argued that the film's violent content shouldn't be promoted with toys intended for pushing the film's graphic content on young children. And McDonald's actually canceled the promotion. The rest of the decade was pretty smooth sailing for the hamburger chain as they landed even more media tie-ins for their Happy Meals, including Spider-Man, Power Rangers, Pocahontas, The Lion King, and Mulan. They also had major partnerships with some of the country's biggest toy brands, like Barbie, Furby, and Tamagotchi. Remember 2 of those? Still, all of these partnerships pale in comparison to what may still be the biggest Happy Meal toy ever, the Teeny Beanies Beanie Baby.
The following is in code to avoid panic in the streets. Beanie Tay, Eenie Bay, Abies Bay are Ack Bay at McDonald's Bay.
First released in 1997 during the height of the Beanie Baby craze, the original Teeny Beanies lineup was so coveted that McDonald's had over 100 million of the little critters made. And if you're thinking that should have been plenty, you do not remember the year 1997. Customers bought up armloads of Happy Meals, but told the cashiers to hold the food. They only wanted the toys. Restaurants in major cities and across the Midwest quickly sold out, and fistfights and brawls broke out in franchises across the nation. There were even reports of McDonald's delivery men being assaulted as they tried to restock restaurants. As a result, kids were often left toyless, while the adults around them racked up dozens of teeny beanies in hopes of an early retirement. For each of the 3 years that followed, McDonald's came out with an all-new exclusive lineup of teeny beanies. But they were never again able to repeat the fervor of that first teeny beanie spring, which is probably for the best. In the new millennium, people have started to question McDonald's practice of targeting children, and many have accused the Happy Meals of being an unethical attempt to entice kids and undermine parents. After all, your parents don't love you like SpongeBob toys do. Boy, they made a lot of those. As concerns mounted over both America's ever-increasing obesity epidemic and its love affair with generating plastic waste, these accusations only grew louder. By the mid-2000s, it seemed that everyone, from parental groups to governmental bodies across the globe, had had enough of the clown. Even Disney turned its back on the Golden Arches in 2006, and the two went over a decade without collaborating on any new promotions. Like Roxette said, it must have been love, but it's over now, for a little while. Facing this pressure to change, McDonald's decided to take the issue head-on, and has spent the past 15 years attempting to address these concerns. While the Happy Meal does still come with a toy, the toy is now often made of 3D paper or recycled plastic. What's more, McDonald's has pledged to reduce fossil fuel-based plastic usage 90% company-wide by 2025. Check back on this video in 2 years and let us know how they did. All the while, the company has cut both soft drinks and cheeseburgers from Happy Meals, replacing the former with a choice of milk, water, or juice, and the latter with plain hamburgers. Fellas, it's called a Happy Meal, not a sad meal. They've also shrunk the size of the kids' fries and have added apple slices to all Happy Meal orders, reducing the caloric value of the Happy Meal by 20% in the process. Today, almost 1 in 4 orders at McDonald's contains a Happy Meal, and about 4 million Happy Meals are sold in more than 100 countries every day. That amounts to over 1 billion Happy Meals sold per year, or 1 billion tiny little toys that will clutter up kids' rooms the world over. Most recently, playing on millennial nostalgia for childhood materialism, McDonald's tried its hand at making Happy Meals for adults. They partnered up with lifestyle brand Cactus Plant Flea Market to make the all-new combo, which was basically just a boxed version of the Big Mac meal or 10-piece McNugget meal, but with a creepy little four-eyed statue to show off at work. 40-year-old Happy Meal kids lost their ever-loving minds for these toys, proving once and for all that no matter how old you get, you're never too old to get into a fistfight over Beanie Babies.
Few fast food culinary creations have as much lore and mystique as McDonald's The McRib. The tangy brainchild of an animal scientist and a fine dining chef, the McRib is the fast food white whale, seemingly appearing at random and disappearing just as quickly, leaving the rest of us to whisper hushed tales of the time we once saw it. Unsurprisingly, the beloved McRib sandwich has had a long and strange journey from creation to consumption. So today, we're painting grill marks onto the history of the McRib. Okay, slide us a piece of the pork because this episode is only available for an unlimited time.
I should have got two.
In the 1970s, the American public became allergic to red meat after the feds stepped in and cautioned against eating large quantities of delicious, cholesterol-filled fast food beef. We hope you heard those flame-broiled air quotes in there. Wendy's and Burger King managed to offer alternatives to the standard bovine options, but McDonald's Filet-o-fish wasn't exactly a huge catch. Which is weird. Who doesn't love square fish?
I'm hooked.
The company sought to find a beef alternative, and while most would think of chicken as the most obvious next step, McDonald's chose a different path. The fast food giant partnered up with the National Pork Producers Council to produce a menu item with the other white meat, pork.
America, you're leaning on pork.
Once again, we ask that you please wrap some air quotes around the word meat. In the late 60s and early 70s, both McDonald's and the United States military had a meat budgeting crisis. Which makes sense. They both feed about the same number of people. To solve that problem, both military brass and Mayor McCheese turned to animal scientists to find a way to make edible meat less expensive. Sadly, we do not mean they brought their problem to a team of dolphins in lab coats. It was more like a bunch of Dr. Moreau's trying to splice the perfect sandwich. This equation used restructured meat, which was an invention of scientist Roger Mandigo. After nearly a decade of trial and error, Mandigo found a way to use cheaper cuts of meat. They used trimmings, a word you've probably read on a hot dog label, which is all the bits like skin, hearts, and stomachs that are viewed as throwaway organs and not as food. But if you smash all of them together, delicious magic can happen. By reducing the size of the rejected animal organs using a mechanical process called comminution, which would then flake, chunk, grind, chop, or slice the waste items into uniform pieces, they were able to engineer a palpable patty. After that, the inclusion of salt and water would trigger an extraction of salt proteins that would bind all those bits together and become one joyfully meaty slab. On paper and reading it, this sounds like not good, but it's perfectly safe to eat, and this technique changed the game for many meat products, including MREs and frozen chicken nuggets. Shockingly, it turns out that no part of a chicken is naturally shaped like a dinosaur. This process was so revolutionary that it was inducted into the Meat Industry Hall of Fame, which is 100% a real thing, and man, do we want to go there. Or maybe just hang out in the gift shop and get some Libitors. Two people contributed to the success of the McRib, assuming the millions of ride-or-die McRib fans are to be ignored. Roger Mandigo, our food Dr. Frankenstein from earlier, who created boneless pork from scratch, since most pigs found in nature have bones, and gourmet chef René Arend, who transformed that science experiment into a craveable, edible sandwich. Chef Arend was first in his class at the College Technique de Strasbourg and the head chef of the fancy Chicago restaurant Whitehall Club, before being recruited over to the Golden Arches by none other than Ray Kroc himself. His mission? Research and development for the fast food empire.
I am in the research kitchen in McDonald's.
Think if Gordon Ramsay got hired by Long John Silver's to hawk fish and chips. McDonald's felt their new lab-created but still technically real meat needed its own PR spin to get people on board. For some reason, they were concerned that smushed organ meat smothered in barbecue sauce might be a hard sell.
Oh, I think you are mistaken.
Arend's legacy at McDonald's goes beyond the McRib. His contributions to our fast food history simply can't be understated. For starters, he developed the legendary original 3 McDonald's dipping sauces: barbecue, hot mustard, and sweet and sour. It's hard to imagine eating a chicken McNugget without that tiny vat of sweet and sour that never judges us. He's also the man responsible for designing the Frankenstein meaty patty into the shape of a rack of ribs. You know, to trick people into thinking they were eating ribs.
I don't mind the taste.
In fairness, they had to make it look like something, because a gray lab patty doesn't exactly pop off the menu. If Mandigo had his way, it would have resembled a pork chop, but Arend thought outside the bun. A real master of his craft, he knew exactly what the people wanted, and he built a sweet and smoky southern barbecue profile with the addition of pickles, sliced white onions, and extra barbecue sauce, all sandwiched on a ticklish French roll. Genius is rarely rewarded in its own time, but the McRib is the McKing of McCeptions. Arend and Mandigo had done their part and created a dish worthy of a spooky clown. But would the public catch on, or dump this culinary experiment in the trash?
What'd you say this was again?
McDonald's calls it the McRib sandwich. It's a new kind of Q.
McRib? I don't see any bones.
The McRib sandwich was shot out to various McDonald's locations in 1981. The food scientists and the fine dining chef held their breath to see how the public would react to their scientific food creation. Would cars be overturned at the drive-thru? Or would there be sticky barbecue tears of joy oozing down everyone's faces as they lined up around the block for a taste of that sweet, sweet Frankenmeat? Well, it was somewhere in the middle. The McRib entered into our cultural zeitgeist to gently polite applause like an improv show. However, it was a surprisingly huge regional success, particularly in the Midwest, where few people dare say no to meat. Despite its uneventful rollout in 1981, the McRib kept pitter-pattering along. McDonald's served their sloppy, succulent slab sandwich for 4 years before suddenly deleting it in 1985. But this is where barbecue plot sauce thickens. Whether this was due to poor sale numbers, an increase in costs of pork meat trimmings, or a marketing ploy to create a demand due to lack of supply is undetermined. Whatever it was, the masses were not happy.
I love the McRib! I love it!
As Americans, we often want what we can't have, like another season of Regis and Kathy Lee.
Did I just say that or not?
With the McRib no longer an option for pork-hungry patrons, those pork-poor patriotic patrons were particularly perturbed. Tie a couple more air quotes around the word pork. In fact, just keep a bunch handy, because we're probably going to need them. Hearing the rumble of millions of tummies, McDonald's threw the McRib back into the menu for a limited time, making the McRib the first ever limited-run fast food item. The return of the McRib caused a spike in the pork and hog futures, as they do most of the time McDonald's rolls out its popular meaty treat. No, really, that's not a joke. The mutual interests of the National Pork Producers Council and McDonald's resulted in a happy marriage between the two, like fake ribs and tangy barbecue. McDonald's likes to whip the McRib in and out of their sandwich vault like a delicious, heart-clogging shell game. And while creating artificial scarcity is a proven marketing ploy, the McRib's constantly fluctuating availability was really born out of necessity. The processed pork puck made another comeback in 1989, and this beefy beauty was a bona fide boomer nationwide. But they had seriously shaken the public trust. After all, the McRib was pulled and reintroduced from the menu several times for the past 5 years. Nobody wanted to risk driving out to their local Mickey D's only to find a ribless menu. It felt random and possibly on the whims of the shadowy Ronald McDonald. That damn clown. But unlike the Hamburglar, Ronald wasn't trying to pull a fast one over the American people. The price of pork was in constant flux, meaning sometimes it didn't make economic sense to continue serving their porcine creation due to rising costs. Others, let's call them McRib truthers, denied that the rotating availability of their precious succulent Frankenwich was due to costs, and believed McDonald's was guilty of arbitrage, or only selling the meat when the prices were at their lowest to make money off both the raw product and the completed sandwich at the same time. Now, if you're one of the characters from Succession, that does sound like a good idea, but it also sounds like a lot of effort and more than a little luck.
Yes, if it is to be said.
Considering how popular the McRib is already, it seems unlikely that Ronnie the Clown would need to go to such great lengths to make them profitable. In 1994, McDonald's was done playing games with America's most divorced sandwich. Don't ask us to explain further, but the McRib is undeniably on its third marriage. They finally pulled the trigger and made the McRib a year-round fast food staple. However, as love stories often do, it took an unlikely third partner to push McDonald's into commitment finally. 1994 was also the same year the live-action Flintstones film slid off a brontosaurus and into movie theaters nationwide. The Flintstones cartoon famously features a scene in which the family car is tipped over by a giant rack of dinosaur ribs. This is alarming when you remember that they also keep dinosaurs in the house as pets and appliances. McDonald's noted how much that rack of ribs resembled their rib-shaped pork sandwich, and a tie-in deal was born. Teaming up with Universal Pictures, Mickey D's went all in on the Flintstones promotion, changing the name of the restaurant to Rock Donald's, transforming the interior of the restaurants into a Stone Age theme.
Welcome to Rock Donald's. May I chisel your order?
And creating special Flintstones merch like glasses and toys. The marketing was a hit for McDonald's, and it allowed the sandwich to remain on the menu throughout the years, no matter how many Stone Age-based movies were currently in theaters. For 10 years, America lived a blissful existence. There was a McRib in every pot and a car in every driveway, in case you need to go pick up more McRibs. But as we've learned the hard way over the years, the McRib wasn't here for a long time, it was only here for a good time. In 2005, McDonald's turned 50, and to celebrate, they pulled the McRib off of the menu. Happy birthday? But they didn't just kick that sweet slab of pork science out the door. They sent it on a farewell tour first. The tour was meant to replicate that of a rock band that also throws in the towel in order to retire to a quiet life in Branson, Missouri. Only in this case, it was a sandwich being temporarily removed from the menu with a lot of fanfare. Some locations offered McRib and general pork trivia, as well as a petition to sign to ask McDonald's to stop toying with our emotions and keep McRib on the damn menu. But like Tom Brady and Brett Favre, the sandwich extended its fake farewell tour for a few years, into 2006 and 2007. Creating even more product scarcity and increasing the demand for the McRib sandwich. They might have engineered a sandwich using deboned pig parts and mad science, but when it came to the actual conditions of fully boned pigs, McDonald's put its money where its barbecue-stained mouth was. In 2012, the company made history when they announced they would no longer purchase pork from companies that use pig gestation crates. Animals kept in these crates are confined in spaces literally too small to move and were considered to be grossly inhumane. Factory farmers still treat their pigs this way, but the McDonaldland crew have no interest in dealing with a farm that does. Since McDonald's is one of the largest purchasers of pork, picking up 250 million pounds of succulent hog each year, thanks in large part to the booming success of the McRib, their anti-cruelty stance was a very big deal. So if you're feeling guilty about pulling into the drive-thru, just remember your pal the McRib. It may have 70 different ingredients, but gosh dang it, it's delicious and technically kind of humane.
In the world of breakfast sandwiches, one icon reigns supreme. The Egg McMuffin. 1 part egg, sort of. 1 part, McMuffin? And 1 part pure Americana, which might be the stuff that makes the paper so greasy. For over 5 decades, this hot little hockey puck has gotten us through the morning with its savory, portable goodness, leading to the proliferation of drive-thru breakfast menus and bringing out a golden age for early risers everywhere. So, today we're serving up the sunrise with the history of the Egg McMuffin. Okay, time to get McMoving. Though breads, cheeses, eggs, and smoked meats have all been part of a hearty breakfast for hundreds of years, and sandwiches have been around since the 1700s, it took a depressingly long time before anyone put 2 and 2 together and made the first ever breakfast sandwich. While today it's unclear exactly which genius first placed egg and ham between 2 slices of bread, many point to London street vendors at the onset of the Industrial Revolution as being those very eggheads. These enterprising entrepreneurs would cram eggs and meats into bats, which are a kind of soft roll that originated in Scotland and not copies of the 1997 Halle Berry film, making an easily portable alternative to the traditional English breakfast. In turn, their factory-working customers, eager to live out their Dickensian dreams, would scarf down their meals while rushing on foot to work. Scrooge may have been less ornery if there'd been a Mickey D's on the corner.
I'm back.
While there's no record of the breakfast sandwich's arduous journey across the pond, it first showed up in the U.S. around the time of the American Civil War. At first, Americans didn't seem to think of these sandwiches as being specifically meant for breakfast. People ate them whenever they were hungry, no matter the time of day. And their portability made them the perfect camp food for wartime feasting. We kind of treat breakfast sandwiches the same way today. They're the perfect food for people who stay up all night and literal coyotes. Back in the 1800s, once the Civil War ended, these non-breakfast breakfast sandwiches found a new home among pioneers headed west. Soon, the noble breakfast sandwich had manifest destinied its way all across the nation. The first documented recipe for an actual breakfast sandwich, meaning one meant to be consumed in the morning, was published at the end of the 19th century. It was Maud C. Cook's 1897 cookbook, Breakfast, Dinner, and Supper, or What to Eat and How to Prepare It, that America's culinary future would be forever changed. In the book, Cook recommends placing chopped meat between slices of stale bread, smothering the ensuing sandwich in a milk, salt, and egg concoction, and then frying the whole thing up in a butter-filled pan. It didn't take long for others to publish their own unique takes on the breakfast sandwich, and it was already becoming an all-American classic by the start of the 1900s. Born in January of 1919, Herb Peterson grew up in Chicago, fought in World War II, and in the 1960s became the vice president of McDonald's Chicago-based advertising firm, Darcy Advertising. While there, Herb was credited with creating McDonald's first ever national advertising slogan, where quality starts fresh every day. What's more, Herb was on the team that dreamed up Ronald McDonald, and the nightmares of small children have never been the same. With these early contributions to the company, McDonald's own Mayor McCheese, Ray Kroc, took a shine to Herb, and he soon encouraged Herb to open up his very own franchise location. According to legend, someone suggested Santa Barbara, on account of Herb's wife being named Barbara. And Herb ran with that incredibly arbitrary suggestion and relocated his whole family to beautiful, sunny California. It's better than throwing darts at a map, or McMuffins at a map. Once there, Herb opened the world's 1,103rd McDonald's location. While this first restaurant was located in the then sleepy town of Goleta, California, Herb would go on to open 5 more locations all around the Santa Barbara area, including one on Santa Barbara's State Street. Even as a McDonald's franchisee, Herb continued to make a splash on the corporation's national operations. For instance, up until the mid-1960s, Kroc didn't allow women to work at any McDonald's restaurant locations. Herb wanted to change this policy, and he convinced Ray to allow his Santa Barbara location to be the first in the nation to get some women on staff. At long last, the fairer sex could get elbow-deep in French fry grease with the rest of them. Still, Herb had one last trick up his sleeve, and it was in 1971 at his Santa Barbara State Street location that he turned from fast food hero to fast food legend. Apparently, Herb caught wind that his State Street customers were dissatisfied with his restaurant's opening time. 11 a.m. just wasn't early enough for them. They wanted their McDonald's as bright and early as possible. The only problem? McDonald's didn't have any items other than hamburgers and French fries, which aren't typically considered breakfast items unless you're planning to attack your day. Jim Delegati, a McDonald's franchisee in Pittsburgh, most famous for his invention of the Big Mac, had gotten the go-ahead from Ray Kroc to sell donuts at his own McDonald's locations. Once you invent the Big Mac, you kind of get to do whatever you want. But the McDonald's Corporation hadn't spent any time developing breakfast items of their own. And so Herb, always the go-getter, took matters into his own hands. Herb Peterson wanted to recreate his own favorite breakfast food, Eggs Benedict, for his franchise customers. Luckily for him, he'd formed a close friendship with none other than TV icon Julia Child. And, according to some, she offered him consultation as he adapted Eggs Benedict for the fast food setting. Once he had a fully developed concept, Herb went to a local blacksmith and commissioned a Teflon-coated iron ring, ensuring that all of his eggs would cook to the exact same size as one another, the exact size of the English muffins they would eventually rest upon. And he and his son David spent a whole 6 months experimenting until they perfected their all-new invention. He then forged one egg ring to rule them all. The Petersons then called Ray Kroc to try it out. Kroc was initially resistant to the idea of changing up the McDonald's formula. But once they finally convinced him to stop by, Ray allegedly ate anywhere from 2 to 4 whole prototypes, depending on who you ask, in just one sitting. He then declared, "Oh my God, we have got to do this." And do this they did. When Herb Peterson took his brainchild to the McDonald's board of directors, it was an open-faced sandwich with a fried egg, a slice of American cheese, and a slice of Canadian bacon atop a buttered and toasted English muffin. The sandwich was an instant hit with Mickey D's executives, because it was an Egg McMuffin. Still, Herb's invention didn't yet have a proper name, a problem that would need to be solved before it ever hit storefronts. Enter Patty Turner, the wife of soon-to-be McDonald's CEO Fred Turner. It was Patty who coined the name Egg McMuffin, and in 1972, Herb's invention was rushed out to test markets. The fluffy little McMiracles sold at select locations for 63 cents a pop for 3 whole years, but they expanded nationally by the mid-1970s. Little did McDonald's know, they had just fired a tremendous opening salvo in the fast food breakfast wars. At the time, no major fast food chain had fully committed to selling breakfast, but McDonald's was all in on the Egg McMuffin. And after just a couple of years of McMuffin success, the company decided to expand its breakfast game even further, unveiling their first ever breakfast menu in 1977. This original menu featured hotcakes, scrambled eggs, sausage, hash browns, and danishes, with the Egg McMuffin front and center. like a breakfast quarterback. Just 4 years after the breakfast menu launched, breakfast items accounted for 18% of all McDonald's sales. And within 10 years, McDonald's breakfast had grown so popular that their sales then accounted for 25% of all restaurant breakfasts sold within the U.S. In other words, in 1987, a quarter of all breakfasts eaten outside the home were purchased from a McDonald's. America was stuffing McMuffins.
You're the one. Better watch that toast that's poppin', burn to a crisp. Better rush, no time for stopping.
You're the one. No cup, but here's your drink. Tired of that breakfast hassle? There's a better way, don't you think?
Have breakfast at McDonald's instead.
You're the one. Relax and drink your juice. You've got the time to catch up on the news.
Enjoy our freshly scrambled eggs with pure pork sausage, hot cakes and creamery butter, or an Egg McMuffin, McDonald's own original, very delicious breakfast sandwich. We serve you fast, so you can eat nice and slow.
You got the time, minutes to spare, 'cause McDonald's was on your way. Now you're ready to face the world. You had breakfast without delay at McDonald's. We do it all for you.
With the success of the McDonald's breakfast menu, it wasn't long before just about everyone got in on the action too. Just 2 years after McDonald's released their first full breakfast menu, Burger King, that regal copycat, started developing a breakfast menu all their own. But it was a task that proved easier said than done. While McDonald's griddles were perfectly adaptable to breakfast items, Burger King's flame broilers weren't exactly compatible with runny eggs. Consequently, that waxy, smiling king had to spend 4 years trying out workarounds before the BK breakfast menu was ready to go. And in 1983, they unveiled to the world the Croissantwich, their own McMuffin competitor that replaced the McMuffin's English muffin with a croissant. Just 2 years later, Wendy's also threw its pigtails into the ring. In 1985, they too launched their very own breakfast menu, which most prominently featured fresh, made-to-order omelets. Wendy's founder Dave Thomas later admitted that this move was a mistake. Made-to-order omelets take a few minutes to cook, which is too slow for a fast food chain to maintain. Within just 9 months of their breakfast menu's launch, Wendy's became the first casualty of the breakfast wars. Omelets were 86th from most Wendy's locations, and the chain has repeatedly started and stopped breakfast menu campaigns in the years since. As recently as 2014, Taco Bell launched its very own breakfast menu competitor, which features breakfast burritos and an eggy take on the Crunchwrap Supreme. Other chains made less notable attempts at a breakfast menu, including Jack in the Box and Del Taco. While some have stuck, others have fallen into the breakfast fog of history, never to be seen again. Even with the rise of all this competition, today breakfast accounts for over 1/3 of McDonald's business. In fact, that clown with the upside-down frown sells so many breakfast sandwiches each year that, according to a 2015 study, the company accounts for 5% of all egg sales across the U.S., purchasing more than 2 billion eggs annually. While the Egg McMuffin still maintains its coveted front and center spot on the McDonald's breakfast roster, its success has paved the way for an assortment of other breakfast items. 1986 saw the creation of the McDonald's biscuit sandwich. 1991 introduced the breakfast burrito, which must have really annoyed Taco Bell. And 2003 saw the invention of the ever-luxurious McGriddle. McDonald's continues to serve each of these creations today, along with a variety of combinations and takes on each specific item. Still, there's nothing quite like Old Reliable. And as it turns out, the Egg McMuffin may have saved the Golden Arches from being melted down. In 2012, McDonald's had hit a period of stagnation that carried on for 13 consecutive months. They were no longer growing, and they needed to change things up if they wanted to keep their place at the top of the fast food world. So, in 2014, they did away with their 10:30 a.m. cutoff time for serving breakfast, announcing that customers could at long last buy Egg McMuffins any time of day, in perpetuity. The world rejoiced, and as a direct result, McDonald's saw its largest annual growth in nearly half a decade. Today, McDonald's remains #1 in fast food breakfast. That is, in every U.S. state but one. Oklahomans prefer Sonic's breakfast, with its toaster sandwiches and its variety of burritos, placing the Sooner State firmly on the wrong side of the breakfast wars. Hey, we get it. Sometimes you just gotta go fast. 2 patties, 3 buns, and a suspiciously zesty secret sauce. It is #1 on the McDonald's menu and #1 in our hearts. The Big Mac. While it may be one of the most recognizable burgers in existence, McDonald's Big Mac didn't become famous overnight. The majestic menu item had to go through a corporate approval process, some ingredient shakeups, and a few name changes before becoming the fast food phenomenon it is today. Today, we're telling you all about the history of the sandwich that put the Golden Arches on the map, the Big Mac. Okay, let's see. 2 all-beef patty, special sauce, lettuce, cheese, pickles, onions on a sesame seed bun. Oh yeah, I nailed it. Despite its popularity today, the Big Mac did not make its way to McDonald's menu until over a decade after the fast food joint had been established. McDonald's had already perfected their tried-and-true burger recipe by 1957, and they were so incredibly popular, the powers that be were reluctant to change anything about their menu. Why paint a mustache on the Mona Lisa? Those single-layer burgers continued to be the main staple in McDonald's franchises all over the country. That is, until the good steelworkers of Uniontown, Pennsylvania decided that they wanted more bang for their buck. In an effort to make sure nobody left the restaurant hungry, the proprietor of this particular franchise would embark on a new sandwich recipe that would eventually become the Big Mac we all know and love today. Michael James Jim Delegati had a problem to solve. He owned a restaurant with just one kind of burger, but his customers wanted more. No, they needed more. But this was not Jim's first time at the fast food rodeo, and if anyone could find a solution, it was him. For reference, a fast food rodeo is the same as a regular rodeo, just with more enlarged cholesterol-filled hearts. After serving in World War II, Delegati worked in a bunch of drive-in restaurants and would eventually go on to open nearly 50 McDonald's restaurants across Pennsylvania. Despite running a store successfully for a decade, Jim started hearing grumbles from both mouths and stomachs alike as the hard-working steel mill laborers would come into the eatery at the end of a long shift. It seemed the rinky-dink burgers currently being served at McDonald's weren't enough for the hungry clientele. With the nearby delis and diners for inspiration on how a heftier sandwich is crafted, Jim developed a double-decker burger that he was sure would satisfy his customers. But before we go on with Jim's story, let's see where his inspiration came from. When McDonald's was first getting its footing in the restaurant game in the 1950s, they extracted both stiff competition and genuine inspiration from one of the more prominent restaurants at the time, Bob's Big Boy. Founded in 1936 in California, Bob's Big Boy had established a comfortable reputation of serving delicious food while expanding across the country. Big Boy founder Bob Wyan is believed to have created the first double-decker sandwich at the restaurant in 1937 at the request of a hungry marching band. But let's be honest, this wasn't the first double-decker sandwich. Those have existed ever since the first Hangover. The burger, eventually dubbed the Big Boy, became the foundation for the whole Bob's Big Boy establishment. And his signature double-decker sandwich did not go unnoticed by competing restaurants. The Big Boy Super Sandwich idea would eventually inspire many copycats, including Delegati, who added his own flourishes to create the McDonald's staple we know today. Creation of the world's most prominent burger didn't happen all at once. There were a few hurdles to leap over before the sandwich would become a nationwide sensation. Not very tall hurdles. You're not running too much track after spending your lunch hour with the Big Mac. The creation of the sandwich came with some caveats. Delegati was only able to make his super stacked sandwich using ingredients already available at McDonald's, which he did, for the most part. Using the beef from the burgers sold at McDonald's and the Bob's Big Boy as inspiration, Jim added chopped up onions, cheese, and pickles. He then sourced the sesame seed bun from a local bakery and double-sliced it to fill out the rest of the stack. The sandwich was starting to take shape, and our mouths are starting to water just talking about it. Delegati spent some time perfecting his recipe, and by 1967, he was ready to unveil his tasty creation to his hungry customers. With the basic composition of the burger nailed down, the stage was set for the double-decker sandwich to premiere at the Southwestern Pennsylvania Burger Shop. The original release was an immediate success. Advertised as the meal disguised as a sandwich, Delegatti's Mammoth Burger sold originally for only 45 cents. The sandwich sold so well in that first year that it caught the attention of McDonald's CEO Ray Kroc. By 1968, McDonald's added it to all of its stores' menus across the United States. Eventually, the popularity would extend to stores in over 100 countries all over the world. But one major question remained. What were they going to call this thing?
Big Mac's Big Mac, but they call it Le Big Mac. Le Big Mac.
Big Mac was not originally used for the double-decker sandwich that took the world by storm. When it was first sold in Pennsylvania, the sandwich had the moniker of Big Mick, which sounds like an Irish boxer. The name never sat right with the higher-ups at McDonald's. Such a regal sandwich deserved a much flashier name, and a few duds were tried on for size. Designations such as the Aristocrat and Blue Ribbon Burger were given a trial run, but neither was able to stick for very long. The Aristocrat? Really? That reminds me of a joke.
A talent agent is sitting in his office. A family walks in.
Oh, yeah, never mind. History was made when a harried executive rushing to an advertising meeting asked a 21-year-old secretary what she would name the sandwich. Esther Glickstein Rose gave him the name Big Mac and promptly went back to her work. Though the name was laughed out of the room at the time, Big Mac eventually stuck. And while not credited or compensated with the naming at the time, Esther was formally recognized for her achievement in 1985. We hope she at least got a free sandwich out of the deal. When Delegatti first created the Big Mac, he needed to distinguish it from Bob's Big Boy Burger. To do that, he added some pickles and onions, but also went to work on creating the perfect tangy sauce, the ingredients to which were a secret for decades. Speculation had been going on for years that the sauce was simple, over-the-counter Thousand Island dressing. But it is not. As the years went on, it became harder for fans to nail down the exact ingredients because the recipe kept changing. You see, Delegatti had his own version of the sauce when he premiered the burger and spent years fine-tuning it. And when McDonald's officially took over the Big Mac, they made several variations of the sauce. It's just like that old saying, a successful sandwich has many fathers. In 1972, they created the cleverly named Big Mac Sauce Recipe 72, which was the standard until McDonald's changed the recipe again in 1991, only to change it once again in 2004. All the while, the recipe remained secret, never to be revealed. Not really. It turns out the sauce is simply a mixture of mayonnaise, sweet pickle relish, and yellow mustard, along with some spices. The whole process was demonstrated by executive chef Dan Kudrow in a YouTube video in 2012. But people are still so obsessed with Big Mac's secret sauce that bottles of the stuff have sold on eBay for thousands of dollars. In that case, I got a bridge to sell you. A bridge made of tangy Big Mac sauce. The Big Mac has evolved quite a bit from its humble beginnings as a heftier snack for hungry workers. Not only is it sold in over 120 countries and territories worldwide, but the US alone sells over 500 million Big Macs every single year. Even if you have never eaten a Big Mac in your life, you cannot deny the impact it has had on popular culture.
I'll have the Big Mac, please.
Great choice.
For instance, if we were to say the words, 2 all-beef patties, how many of you are able to sing the rest of the song?
2 all-beef patties, special sauce, lettuce, cheese, pickles, onions, and a sesame seed bun.
2 whole... Well, what was that word again?
For that earworm we just put in your head, you can thank Keith Reinhardt, who created the Big Mac jingle in 1974. The catchy tune succeeded in making the Big Mac even more popular than it already was, which at that time was pretty popular.
2 all-beef patties, special sauce, lettuce, cheese, pickles, onions, and a sesame seed bun.
2 all-beef patties.
Pretty good deal for a song composed of nothing but ingredients. Your move, Kentucky Fried Chicken. On second thought, scratch that. Weird History food viewers will remember how bad an idea it is to cross the kernel. The influence of the American Big Mac has also inspired knockoff versions and variations all around the world. In places like India, where they don't eat beef, you can get yourself the Maharaja Mac, which is made with mutton. Or head down to Australia where you can purchase the Son of Mac, which is a Big Mac but without the middle bun in the center. If cheese isn't your thing, stop by Israel, where a kosher version without the cheese can be found.
Here you go, Mr. President.
God bless Israel.
You can even get a bigger Big Mac up in Alaska called the McKinley Mac, which features quarter-pounder patties instead of the normal Mac patties. By the time the Big Mac turned 40, McDonald's was reportedly selling around 17 of them every second. Today, the Big Mac is more popular than ever, second in sales only to McDonald's fries, which are the savory mortar to the delicious bricks being laid in your arteries. Billions have been sold across the world ever since one man in Pennsylvania decided he wanted more out of his burgers and demanded better. Worldwide sales of the Big Mac are so important that in 1986, The Economist created something called the Big Mac Index. The availability of the Big Mac in so many countries makes for an excellent benchmark of current exchange rates across the world. And not to throw double-decker stones, but we're not seeing the Whopper Index anywhere. If all this Big Mac lore is particularly interesting to you, may we suggest visiting the Big Mac Museum in North Huntingdon, Pennsylvania. And yes, that is absolutely a real thing. There you can view wall-mounted timelines of the Big Mac's career over the decades, as well as toys and memorabilia dating almost as far back as the Big Mac itself. However, there are signs that the Big Mac spot at the top of the mountain may be at risk. Reportedly, and tragically, only 1 in 5 millennials has ever even tried the sandwich, which can be blamed on a lot of things, not the least of which is that a Big Mac costs a fair bit more than a pocket full of nickels nowadays. Still, when you want the maximum possible amount of hamburger in the smallest possible package, the Big Mac is second to none. If you're one of those people who thinks the Coca-Cola served at McDonald's tastes different than the Coke served at other places, good news, you're not crazy. The Coke at McDonald's actually does have a unique flavor, and some say it's better than canned Coke or Coke from other restaurants.
How do you even drink that?
And we know why. So, today we're going to take a look at why Coke at McDonald's tastes so different. Okay, time to have a Coke and a smile, and a Big Mac. McDonald's and Coke was a match pretty much everyone, but health food advocates, agree was made in heaven. The relationship actually goes way back to 1955, when Disneyland was first opening in California. Rock Around the Clock was burning up the charts, and Marty McFly was trying to get his parents to kiss at the Enchantment Under the Sea dance. It was also the year entrepreneur Ray Kroc first met Coca-Cola executive Waddy Pratt, and they must have hit it off pretty well, because within a few hours the two agreed to work together to expand their brands to every corner of the globe. That agreement means McDonald's is the only client that has an entire division at Coca-Cola devoted to it. In fact, it's often joked that McDonald's is among the top 5 countries that Coca-Cola sells to, which would make Ronald president? No. Ronald's king of that realm. The two companies work closely to manage the beverages served at McDonald's, and to that end, they've developed several processes that are entirely unique to the way each brand operates. The companies even have a deal that prevents Coca-Cola from selling their syrup to other restaurants for less than what McDonald's pays, no matter what that means for their bottom line. In this business, you don't even think about undercutting the clown. However, based on how well they've done over the past 70 years or so, we think this deal has worked out just fine for both parties. Most people don't realize it, but how and when the ingredients of soda are combined can make a difference in how the final product tastes. And unlike soda that comes in a bottle or can, fountain sodas are mixed the moment they start pouring from the tap. Basically, canned soda is kind of like frozen fish. If you want the best Coke, you have to get it straight from the stream. The soda syrup and the carbonated water are stored and dispensed by the machine separately, and then only mix once they actually fill your cup. This makes the taste of fountain drinks, in general, different from the taste of pre-mixed sodas, and many believe it results in a fresher flavor, including McDonald's. Mickey D's has consistently worked to make their Coke products taste as fresh as possible, and managing their drink machines is a big part of that. The company has a set of strict guidelines for their restaurants that ensures consistency across their thousands of locations. Locations that don't meet the corporate standard have their managers taken out to a field and clubbed by the fry guys, we assume. McDonald's aims to make it so that no matter which location you're visiting, the Coke they serve will taste identical to the Coke at every other McDonald's in the world. It's an ambitious goal, and not one that all of their competitors have pursued. That's largely because of the amount of syrup and carbon dioxide those competitors mix into their Coke. For example, some places deliberately put more syrup than is recommended into the mix in order to make their Coke taste sweeter. And while most companies usually have a standard recipe to work off of, individual locations may not always adhere to that standard. McDonald's, on the other hand, has always made a concerted effort to enforce their Coke standard, like Tony Montana. For the kind of people who notice such things, it definitely shows. Interestingly, McDonald's actually puts less syrup in their drinks than many other chains. A small Coke from McDonald's contains 40 grams of sugar, but over at a place like Panera Bread, you'll be served a Coke with as much as 67 grams of sugar in it. That's a fairly significant difference. Why? Well, presumably because Panera realizes it's just nowhere near as fun as McDonald's, so they're reaching for any advantage they can get, and the debut of their Panera burglar mascot went over like a lead balloon. But more importantly, McDonald's has managed to determine the exact ratio of syrup to put into their Cokes in order to capture that unique taste that they believe their customers love. And they're not going 1 gram of sugar over. Come on, they've already got the play place. They don't need to convince you they're fun. Mixing the ingredients of a soda is a lot more complicated than it seems. Even slight differences in syrup ratio, drink temperature, or carbonation levels can drastically affect the taste of fountain Coke. But McDonald's ain't having that. Over the years, they've gone to great lengths to ensure their Coke meets a certain standard. They even account for the effect that melting ice can have on flavor. Seriously, these people spend a lot of time thinking about soda. Do Coke sommeliers exist? If they do, McDonald's has several on the payroll. But as anyone who's ever drank a Coke before can tell you, melted ice absolutely affects the flavor. As the ice in the soda melts, the water begins to dilute the syrup ratio in the cup. This makes the drink less sweet over time. But people want ice. Have you ever had a warm Coke? Probably not, because they're against the Geneva Convention. So, McDonald's adds just enough extra syrup to reduce this effect. Practically speaking, this means that your first sip of McDonald's Coke is going to be a little sweeter than your fifth, but the drop-off is designed to be as invisible as Grimace's zipper. The chain also pre-chills its syrup before it's mixed into your drink. This is critical not only to prevent dilution, but also to keep the soda carbonated longer. Carbonation decreases rapidly at higher temperatures, which means your drink becomes less carbonated the warmer it gets. Not every restaurant and fast food chain pre-chills its syrup. In fact, the majority of fountain drink machines use a flash chilling system that is generally considered much less efficient than McDonald's pre-chilling method. To go the extra mile, McDonald's even pre-chills the water that goes into the Coke. Not only that, the actual drink fountain itself is refrigerated. Yeah, the entire fountain beverage system at McDonald's is kept at a chilled temperature thanks to insulated tubing. The tubes connect the restaurant's fountain machines to a refrigeration unit in the back, and water is continuously pumped through the system in order to keep it in the range of 33 to 38 degrees Fahrenheit. That's about as cold as the water can get before hitting the freezing point. The low temperature is also great for maintaining carbonation levels in the water. The whole process is a bit Willy Wonka by way of strip mall fast food joint, but it's a small price to pay for the world's most perfect Coke, unless you order it without ice. If you're one of those people who doesn't like watered-down drinks, or you're some kind of weirdo who enjoys warm soda, you're going to get a strange-tasting Coke. The company's soda is literally designed to be served with ice, so the flavor is fairly different without it. Your mileage may vary on whether it's better or worse, but it's not what the Golden Arches recommends. A big part of the alchemy behind making good Coke is simply in making sure the syrup doesn't spoil. Yeah, soda goes bad. Have you ever seen a spoiled box of soda syrup? It's like a bunch of ants stumbled into the gluttony crime from 7. To keep the syrup from going bad, you need to keep it as chilled as possible. To accomplish this, McDonald's actually developed its own fairly clever system of transporting, storing, and dispensing Coca-Cola. While most restaurants store their syrup in plastic bags, McDonald's uses special steel storage tanks designed to keep their contents cool. Plastic bags are much more vulnerable to the elements, and bags left open in the air can warm up over time. So before you know it, boom, you're left with a spoiled bag of soda you have to sell at a discounted rate. The steel tanks McDonald's uses protects the syrup from those kinds of temperature changes, as well as against air and even light exposure. In addition to keeping the drinks cold, the insulated tubing system is also there to ensure that the Coke maintains its satisfying fizzy taste. To dissolve carbon dioxide into water, it must be kept at a low temperature and under high pressure, like a penguin with a gambling debt. Cold water traps the carbon dioxide required for carbonation, which is why colder sodas don't go flat as quickly as warm ones. Carbonation also adds a sharp, bitter sensation that is actually caused by a chemical reaction in the drink. When carbon dioxide dissolves in water, small traces of the carbon compound react with the water to create carbonic acid, a mild acid, an antibiotic that helps keep soda water cleaner for longer. Don't worry, there isn't going to be a test later or anything.
The limit does not exist. The limit does not exist.
As if all that space-age soda fountain technology wasn't enough,
that is seriously cool.
McDonald's actually filters the water in its drinks before it is used in the fountain dispensers. Ronald's lips don't touch a drop of Coke unless it's been brewed with Evian. Mickey D's filtration system is state-of-the-art, with water filtered multiple times before it is ever served to a customer. A big reason for this is making sure Coke tastes the same in every McDonald's. You see, natural water sources differ in many ways, and can include different types of minerals. Like wine, you can often tell which region a certain water is from based on its unique mineral flavors. This phenomenon is known as terroir, and it's something McDonald's tries desperately to avoid. Because they have restaurants all over the globe, McDonald's has to make sure that local water sources do not affect the taste of their drinks. The best way to do that is to have a uniform filtration system that pumps out consistent results no matter which water source is being used. And as an added benefit, customers get to enjoy Coke as fresh and delicious as a mountain spring. Ever stop to consider whether the straw you're using changes the taste of the drink you're drinking? Well, McDonald's has. Its straws are a little bit wider than the industry standard, so that customers can enjoy bigger sips. They claim this embiggened straw ensures that Coke can wash over your taste buds more efficiently, which may be true, but straws also play another important role. Straws are designed so that sippers are always drinking from the bottom of their cup, and there's a reason for that. Over time, the water and syrup start to separate into different layers and spoil the taste. The bottom of the cup is where the syrup and water are most thoroughly mixed, and every sip helps you mix it a little bit more. You're technically doing a little bit of work for McDonald's every time you take a drink, which is okay. In lieu of back pay, we'll accept a shoebox full of chicken nuggets, please. Finally, the taste of soda depends on the medium you're drinking from. According to one soda expert, tall glasses are ideal because the carbonated bubbles are able to float upwards through more of the soda. But that's not to say that glass retains carbonation better than plastic. Both glass and aluminum containers are slightly porous, which means carbon dioxide can escape through small imperfections in the material. Plastic, on the other hand, is not nearly as porous and traps the gas more efficiently. This is likely why McDonald's serves some of its beverages in plastic cups, although they also use paper cups as well. So there you have it. All of the intricate science and technology behind the uniquely fresh flavor of McDonald's Coke, engineered by the finest food scientists in the business, who presumably all have giant cheeseburger heads. The year is 2003, and your wallet is totally empty. But with a couple of quarters from the couch and some dimes from the ashtray, you can eat like a king from the dollar menu. Fast forward 2 decades later, and your wallet is still empty. But this time, when you pull up to a drive-thru, your quarters and dimes won't even get you a packet of mayonnaise. So what happened? Today, we're investigating the rise and fall of the dollar menu. Okay, time to ask your parents for some change. In 1989, Wendy's unveiled the nation's first shot at a cheaper side menu for cash-strapped customers. They called it the Super Value Meal, because mild-mannered value meal doesn't sound as impressive. The Super Value Meal featured 9 different items, each priced at 99 cents apiece. The items were on a rotation, but included burgers, nuggets, chili, milkshakes, soft drinks, salads, and baked potatoes. A baked potato and a milkshake for $1 apiece? Man, we didn't know how good we had it. What's really good is when you dip the potato in the milkshake. As '89 became 1990 and the United States entered a recession, more fast food chains wanted to tap into Wendy's share of the cash-strapped market. Many, including Taco Bell and McDonald's, permanently cut the prices of specific menu items to try to keep up with Wendy's low-cost offerings.
Wendy, don't you have anything else to do?
But it wasn't until 1998 that another fast food company took Wendy's idea to make a whole separate menu dedicated exclusively to cheap food. That bold competitor was Burger King, and His Highness's big idea was the 99-cent Great Tastes menu. Geez, we gotta work on these menu names. Part of the magic of the dollar menu is that it doesn't take long to say, so you can spend those precious extra seconds stuffing your face with cheeseburgers. The delicious yet affordable offerings on the 99-cent Great Tastes menu included the Whopper Jr., a bacon cheeseburger, a small milkshake, 5-piece chicken nuggets, and medium onion rings. That's a whole lot of stomachache for just $5. The King unveiled this regal new menu during the It Just Tastes Better marketing campaign, which sought to appeal to customers' taste buds as well as their wallets and steer them away from McDonald's. And believe it or not, despite its dominant position atop the fast food chain, McDonald's was slow to respond with a value meal of its own. While McDonald's didn't invent the value meal, appealing to customers with low prices has always been part of their business model. For instance, in 1958, they became the first fast food chain to sell what we now think of as combo meals, menu items that were bundled together to increase efficiency and offer customers more bang for their buck. One iteration of this combo meal was the All-American 3-course meal, which consisted of a hamburger, french fries, and a milkshake. And while it definitely was not a 3-course meal, it was undeniably American, and it cost only 52 cents. Nowadays, if you came into a McDonald's with nothing but a pair of quarters in your pocket, they'd have Grimace break your legs. McDonald's would often market these deals towards the nuclear family, with slogans like, "You deserve a break today," and McDonald's, the closest thing to home. And in 1979, to further pull families in, McDonald's introduced what may just be the most recognizable combo meal of all time, the Happy Meal. The original Happy Meal cost $1.15, and it included a burger, fries, a soft drink, cookie, and a special prize, which, among other things, included a McDoodler stencil, a McWrist wallet, or a McDonaldland character eraser. That prize list sounds like junk from the manager's drawer, but hey, it only cost $1. With the addition of Ronald McDonald and the McDonald's Play Place, the corporation had everything it needed to lure in desperate families with limited cash and bored, rambunctious kids. But as the 70s became the 80s, McDonald's turned their attention from the kiddos to the adultos. In 1985, they introduced value packs, which sounds more like a bulk purchase of toothpaste than a delicious meal. Man, are the people in charge of naming these things allergic to good ideas? Like the all-American meal before them, these packs came with a burger, fries, and a soft drink. And it was cheaper to buy them than it was to purchase each item individually. Just 2 years later, McDonald's introduced the world to supersizing. Yeah, that's supersizing, which heaved even bigger portions onto customers' trays for just a few cents extra. But as the years went on, Mickey D's became less innovative. More chains rose to compete in the fast food marketplace, and all of them wanted a piece of the clown, the tastiest piece. Hey, several members of the McDonaldland cast are edible. Ronald could just be a big french fry in face paint. McDonald's had to fend off competing bargains like Burger King's $1 Whopper and the $59.79.99 deal from Taco Bell. By the turn of the millennium, McDonald's was getting so thoroughly rinsed by rival chains that its stock price dropped 39% in just 1 year. McDonald's had to adapt if it wanted to keep slinging burgers. In other words, it was time for the dollar menu. In an effort to save their struggling corporation, McDonald's launched its internal Plan to Win strategy, presumably after they realized their Plan to Do Nothing strategy wasn't working. Part of this exciting new Plan to Win was the creation of their very own value meal in 2002. They called it the Dollar Menu. For just $1 a pop, customers could enjoy the delectable McChicken sandwich, the ever-so-tasty McValue fries, or even the fruit and yogurt parfait, which is really just a pie in a cup. The hope was that customers would be lured in by the cheap and delicious dollar menu, and then buy more expensive items to add to their order. So sure, the ice cream sundae's only $1, but pair that with a couple of Big Macs and a 10-piece chicken McNugget, and you've spent over half your paycheck before the weekend's even over. And McDonald's makes a tidy profit. But those results never materialized. The dollar menu actually encouraged people to spend less money. Within the first month of the dollar menu's debut, the average customer was spending 3 cents less per visit than before. And when you're only making a few bucks on every order, those cents add up. It wasn't long before some locations started bleeding cash, like Hamburglar was shaking them down for protection money. The biggest dollar menu offender was the double cheeseburger, which many franchise owners complained was set at an unsustainable price. They felt no one would spend $4 on a Big Mac when they could get a perfectly delicious alternative for a quarter of the price. Customers would come in and order tap water and a couple of double cheeseburgers from the dollar menu. And depending on the local labor and costs, the franchise location might actually lose money on the transaction. Nobody wants to lose money on a McDonald's. That's no fun. Some rebel franchise owners fought against the tasty tyranny of the dollar menu by raising the price of the double cheeseburger at their own locations without getting corporate approval. Some raised the price to $1.19 or to $1.39. And many Manhattan locations never sold the double cheeseburger for less than $2. Due to franchising agreements, they were all well within their rights to do so. Individual locations could charge whatever they wanted for their burgers, even if it meant falling out of line with McDonald's national marketing campaign. As the years passed and McDonald's held strong to the dollar double cheeseburger for nearly a decade, the company had to reassure its franchise owners that a more sustainable business model was on the way. The only problem was they needed to come up with one first. But by naming their low-price menu a dollar menu rather than a value menu like many of their competitors, McDonald's had backed itself into a corner. Everything had to be priced at $1, or the name no longer made sense. It would be like Dollar General, which doesn't actually limit its prices to $1, but does keep every location as filthy and dimly lit as possible to make customers feel like they're spending the bare minimum. In order to change their business model, the dollar menu would have to be buried in the same shallow grave as Mayor McCheese, and something entirely new would have to rise from its ashes. According to McDonald's, a whole quarter of its customers had become value menu loyalists.
Hashtag $1 fries.
And the company felt at risk going under if it lost that base. The dollar menu had to evolve. And in 2013, it came to be known as the Dollar Menu and More. That sneaky little and more allowed Mickey D's to keep the dollar menu name while increasing the price of several items, including the McChicken and that dastardly double cheeseburger that started all this trouble in the first place. While no cities burned to the ground, that we know of, the effects of this change were cataclysmic for the Golden Arches. Loyal customers had been spoiled by the menu's previous $1 price tag, and no one wanted to pay double what they were used to for the same product. You can't dump a shamrock shake on people's heads and tell them it's raining. As a result, the dollar menu and more idea lasted as long as onion nuggets. It was quickly dropped and replaced by a new, temporary promotion, the McPick 2. Many menu items went back to costing just $1. The catch was, in order to take advantage of the promotion, customers were locked into buying 2 items, hence the McPick 2. But once again, franchise owners complained that they were losing money. One even described it as the most devastating promotion to operator cash flow in the past 10 years. Considering McDonald's has tried to force hot dogs and spaghetti onto the menu over the years, this was pretty damning criticism. Even so, that didn't stop competing fast food chains from creating similar promotions. For instance, Wendy's debuted their own 4 for $4 deal, which doubled the price of the McDonald's deal, but doubled the pile of food you were buying too. We'd make that trade any day of the week. Burger King, in turn, upped its coupon game and dropped the price of their 10-piece chicken nuggets to just $1.49. Fast food lovers across the nation rejoiced, their mouths full of thrifty cheeseburgers, because all this competition once more brought prices down to new lows. But even so, the McPick 2 proved to be just as big an albatross as the dollar double cheeseburger, and McDonald's quietly retired the promotion. When it did eventually come back, it was reimagined as the McPick 2 for $5. Take that, Wendy's. The increased price allowed big-ticket items like the Big Mac and the 10-piece McNugget to be included in the promotion. But at that point, you're basically just ordering from the regular menu, and the promotion didn't catch on. In 2017, the dollar menu entered the modern era. With the days of a true dollar menu far behind it, McDonald's decided to pelt a dead horse with deliciously affordable menu offerings when they introduced the $1, $2, $3 dollar menu. At many restaurants, this is just called the menu. The unusual concept was mocked by Taco Bell, who took the opportunity to proudly showcase their value menu of 20 items that actually cost only $1. The only math you should have to do at the drive-thru is figuring out how many extra burgers to order in case you get stuck in traffic. But as sweatily named as it may have been, this latest iteration of the McDonald's dollar menu was a hit, and its detractors were quickly forced to eat their words, and some 5-piece McNuggets. Their U.S. sales were up 2.9% in the first 3 months of the new menu's existence. The addition of 2 extra price points to the classic dollar menu gave McDonald's the wiggle room it needed to make sure it made a profit, and sales went up nearly 3% in the first 3 months. Today, roughly half a decade since its debut, the $1, $2, $3 dollar menu has outlasted every other McDonald's value menu. They broke the McMold with that one. The $1, $2, $3 dollar menu is proving a comeback is not impossible. Just ask the McRib.
They say the diamonds are forever, but sadly, not all McDonald's menu items are diamonds. Poor marketing, stiff competition, and just plain bad ideas have doomed many would-be Big Macs to the big menu in the sky. But every single one of them was beloved by somebody. So today, we're going to take a look at some discontinued McDonald's menu items people never forgot. Okay, somebody keep an eye out for the Hamburglar. He probably has half of these stashed in his car. Originally tested in select markets in California, the Big and Tasty first dropped in 1997 and then went nationwide in the year 2000 as part of a promotional tie-in with Disney's California Adventure theme park in Anaheim. As its size-oriented name might suggest, the Big and Tasty was intended to be a direct competitor for Burger King's Whopper, but it never really took off and was discontinued in the US in 2011. However, if you desperately need a fix, the Big and Tasty is still available on select US military bases. All you have to do to get one is enlist. When McDonald's first introduced their now iconic Chicken McNuggets, consumers could dip them in one of 4 sauces: barbecue, sweet and sour, honey, and hot mustard. But even for McNuggets, time marches on. And in 2011, the fast food giant introduced some new varieties, including sweet chili, honey mustard, spicy buffalo, and creamy ranch. With all the new options, it was decided that some of the old ones should move on. And with that, hot mustard sauce was slowly phased out, being completely discontinued in the US in 2014.
Or was it?
Turns out, while the sauce was removed from McDonald's menus nationally, it's still available in select markets, apparently at the whim of your local McDonald's owner. Introduced for a limited time in 1998, and then joining the menu on a more permanent basis in 2003, Chicken Selects were essentially McDonald's version of chicken fingers. Despite being offered with sauces like spicy buffalo, creamy ranch, honey mustard, consumers didn't seem too hot on picking this chicken. They undersold nationally and were deleted from the US menu in 2013. In the summer of 1987, McDonald's decided, purely from the goodness of their hearts, to offer consumers the chance to supersize their meal with an extra-large drink and side of fries. Americans do love more, but McDonald's supersize menu items officially bit the dust in 2004 after lackluster sales, a need to trim what it considered to be a bloated menu, and public clamor for healthier options brought it back down to size. Won't anyone think of the fries? Originally introduced in the Midwest in 1985 and nationally in 1988, the Cheddar Melt is basically a quarter pounder topped with onions sautéed in butter, teriyaki sauce, and cheddar cheese sauce on a rye bun. That, actually sounds pretty good. It was last seen in 2004 and briefly again in 2014, but as of 2023, it remains off the menu. Introduced in 2009, the Angus Burger, also known as the Angus Third Pounder, which is more fun to shout at a drive-thru speaker, was part of a long series of attempts to market higher-end menu items. But it seems like the public just isn't interested in buying fancy food from McDonald's. You can only spend so much money on a cheeseburger until you start wondering why you're buying it from a clown. The Angus Burger was put out to pasture in 2013. Although it's a staple of their menu now, there was a time when walking into a McDonald's and asking for a salad would have gotten you on the news, or perhaps thrown in jail. That would explain why some of Mickey D's early attempts at serving healthier options just didn't work, like the McSalad Shakers, which were basically just salads in a cup. Despite the good intentions, these precursors to McDonald's premium salads, which came in 3 flavors, Chef, Grilled Chicken Caesar, and Garden, were discontinued in 2003 due to lackluster sales. BLT stands for bacon, lettuce, and tomato, and it's one of the most famous sandwiches in the universe. The McDLT stood for a McDonald's lettuce and tomato sandwich, and is only remembered by those who experienced it. Wait, shouldn't it be an MLT? Introduced in 1984, the meat and bottom half of the McDLT were prepared separately from the top half, which included the lettuce, tomato, American cheese, pickles, and sauces. Both were then packaged into a specially designed 2-sided styrofoam container to be assembled when you were ready to eat. The problem was, that container was worse for the environment than a McOil spill. The company discontinued the weirdly named burger in 1991. Now considered one of the biggest product flops of all time, the Arch Deluxe was McDonald's attempt to sell a burger for adults. The burger was made with high-end ingredients, including a 1/4 pound of beef on a potato flour bun, bacon, leaf lettuce, tomato, American cheese, onions, ketchup, a secret mustard, and mayonnaise sauce. But despite spending the modern equivalent of over $500 million on its introductory advertising campaign, more than any fast food company had ever spent to promote a menu item, the burger never took off with the public and was discontinued in 2000. The Son of Mac was a single-patty version of the Big Mac, kind of like hamburger training wheels, for the Big Mac version of a Whopper Jr. That, as the name implies, most people who want a Big Mac want it, well, big. Possibly for that reason, the Son of Mac never really caught on in the US. It was sold in Australia and New Zealand for a while, but has since been discontinued in those markets as well. But hope springs eternal. The little burger no one wanted is still sold in Canada, having found its niche as the Kids Mac. Traditionally, a triple-double is when a basketball player gets 10 or more points, assists, and rebounds in a single game. But McDonald's left many a sports fan confused when its triple-double burger had nothing to do with basketball and everything to do with Batman. The superheroic sandwich consisted of 3 beef patties and 2 slices of cheese, served on the same type of sesame seed roll used for the McRib, and was released as part of a promotion for the 1995 blockbuster Batman Forever. That's the one with Jim Carrey. So why was it called a triple-double when the whole point of the sandwich was to promote Batman? Well, McDonald's probably figured no one would want to order something called a Bat Burger. Whatever the case, it was discontinued after the movie left theaters in the late summer of 1995. What do you get when you cross a Chicken McNugget with an onion ring? You get one of McDonald's very early attempts to please vegetarians, the Onion Nugget. They were exactly what they claimed to be, onion rings in a convenient nugget shape. To this day, no one exactly knows why they disappeared from test markets in the 1970s, but that's given them an air of mystery and a cult following among fast food enthusiasts. McDonald's attempted to expand their breakfast offerings and cash in on the growing market for breakfast bagels by releasing 3 delicious varieties: a ham, egg, and cheese bagel, a steak, egg, and cheese bagel, and the Spanish omelet bagel, which included sausage, pepper jack, and American cheese, and an egg stuffed with onions and peppers. That's pretty early in the morning to book a guaranteed trip to the restroom. Another poor seller, the Spanish omelet bagel was banished from the menu during the early 2000s. Not to be confused with McWings, a similar product that is still sold at many international McDonald's locations, Mighty Wings weren't a big seller for the fast food giant. In fact, after rolling out the bone-in chicken wings with spicy breading in 2013, franchises were forced to sell millions of discounted wings just to get rid of them all. Sounds like a mighty failure and a mighty pain in the ass. The Big 33/McJordan Special was a 1/4 pounder with bacon and special barbecue sauce named after basketball players Larry Bird or Michael Jordan, depending on where you were eating one. In some parts of the country, it was called the McJordan Special in honor of Jordan, and in other places, it was called the Big 33 in honor of Bird's jersey number, presumably because the McBird Special just sounds like you're about to eat a McDonaldland character. It was ultimately discontinued in 1992, but a 20-year-old jug of the barbecue sauce sold on eBay for just a hair under $10,000. Borrowing its name from another discontinued menu item, Chicken McBites, Fish McBites were basically just nugget-sized pieces of the McDonald's Filet-o-fish served with tartar sauce. So it was like eating a fried fish patty your parents had to cut up for you. Introduced in February of 2013, the menu item that was also called by the equally bad but also more fun name, Fish McDippers, sold so poorly that they were discontinued by April of 2013. In 1979, the first Star Trek movie hit theaters, AC/DC released the album Highway to Hell, and McDonald's released the chopped beef steak sandwich. Despite being described as the best sandwich McDonald's ever produced, this oblong burger on a bun with onions and barbecue sauce disappeared in the early 1980s. So what happened? Well, the burger, which was served with the side of onion nuggets and only available between 4 and 9 p.m., cost $1.29 at a time that a regular burger set you back 40 cents. Nobody wants to be seen paying extra for onion nuggets. Maybe that's why they only sold them at night. The McPizza was created to compete directly with Domino's and Pizza Hut, and in that sense, it was a pretty dramatic failure. But the problem with pizza, if indeed pizza can have a problem, is that it takes a while to prepare. Since most people who opt for fast food want their food fast, this item never really caught on with customers, and it was discontinued by around 2000. Except, for some reason or another, it's still available at a single location in Orlando, Florida. Maybe Mickey likes it. Introduced in 1993, the McLobster was a lobster roll served in a hot dog bun with shredded lettuce and something called lobster sauce. At nearly $6, McLobster was too expensive for the average McDonald's customer because spending too much on food is the precise experience a McDonald's customer is trying to avoid. It was discontinued nationally in 2017, but occasionally resurfaces in the New England and Atlantic Canadian regions, where lobster is more abundant and less expensive. Similar to their brief flirtation with Mexican food, McDonald's also briefly tried getting it on with Asian cuisine in the form of Shanghai McNuggets. But the company didn't really put their heart into the relationship. The Shanghai McNuggets were essentially just regular McNuggets sold with sweet and sour sauce, hot mustard, teriyaki sauce, a fortune cookie, and chopsticks. It was discontinued in the late 1980s. In the 1990s, McDonald's introduced a line of healthier products known as the Deluxe line, and the McLean Deluxe was the Golden Arches attempt at a healthy burger, which contained ketchup, mustard, pickles, tomato, a lettuce leaf, and a reduced fat patty, all on a bakery-style roll. And thanks to ingredients like seaweed and other additives, the sandwich was 91% fat-free. But part of the experience of going to McDonald's is ordering something that could stop your heart like a traffic light. So the McLean Deluxe was discontinued in 1996 after flopping with the public. The whole Deluxe line followed in 2000. McSoup was essentially Campbell's soup in a McDonald's cup, and well, that's pretty much all there is to it. It came in 2 flavors, chicken noodle and broccoli and cheese, and was served only at certain times of the year in colder climates. Locations in places like Hong Kong, Taiwan, and Portugal still make soups available to customers, albeit very different ones. But American consumers have been forced to go McSoupless ever since this one disappeared from the menu. This cheeseburger that had a slice of pineapple where a beef patty would normally be was created as a vegetarian option for Catholics who didn't eat meat on Fridays. McDonald's CEO Ray Kroc thought this meatless burger would be way more popular than the Filet-o-fish, and he bet a fortune of money on it. But when he normally had a pretty sharp business sense, this is a bet he lost. McDonald's voted with their wallets, and the Filet-o-fish soundly trumped the McHula. Mixed spaghetti included pasta, marinara sauce, meatballs, and a cheese topping. It hung around until the 1980s, at which point it was discontinued everywhere except Orlando, Florida. Wait, really? What is it with that place? There's also a mixed spaghetti on the menu in the Philippines, but that one is actually a completely different dish. During the 90s, McDonald's considered bringing the product back. They tested mixed spaghetti in a few select markets and discovered, much like with McPizza, consumers weren't biting. Ray Kroc hated hot dogs. Why? Because according to Kroc, you never really know what's in a hot dog's skin. He hated them so much, he banned them from ever being sold at his restaurants. But he made one crucial mistake. He didn't live forever. After Kroc's passing, McHot dogs found their way into a few markets, only to fail miserably. They haven't been seen on a McMenu since the late 90s. Ray may have been onto something. As the old saying goes, give a man a Filet-o-fish and you feed him for a day. Teach a man how to buy his own Filet-o-fish and you feed him for a lifetime. In fact, there are fast food joints everywhere, and they all seem to have their own version of McDonald's famous fish sandwich. Is it some kind of conspiracy? Well, today we're spilling the tartar sauce on why every fast food joint has a fish sandwich. Is something smelling fishy to y'all? In 1962, Lawrence of Arabia was in movie theaters, Chubby Checkers The Twist was on the radio, and Cincinnati McDonald's franchisee Lou Grown was having a religious crisis. His McDonald's was located in an overwhelmingly Roman Catholic neighborhood, and Roman Catholics didn't eat meat on Fridays, in honor of Jesus Christ's sacrifice. Needless to say, it was a tough spot for a restaurant that, at the time, had no entrees but burgers on its menu. Unwilling to essentially lose an entire day of business every week, Grown tried to convince McDonald's to start selling a breaded whitefish sandwich. He got the idea from a competing franchise called Frisch's Big Boy. Founder David Frisch was getting all of Grown's lost Friday night sales by putting a fish sandwich on the menu, and Grown wanted one too. It should have been an easy swim, but Grown's fish ran into a croc, Ray Kroc. Ray Kroc liked to hold himself out as the founder of McDonald's, even though he bought the company from its true founders, Richard and Maurice McDonald, in 1961. However, Kroc was responsible for transforming the company from a burger stand into the single most famous restaurant in the world. Seriously, try to find someone who hasn't heard of McDonald's. When Grown came to Kroc with his fish sandwich idea, Kroc reluctantly agreed that the Golden Arches needed a non-meat option. That being said, he wasn't too hot on the thought of all of his locations suddenly reeking of fish. Also, and perhaps most importantly, Kroc had his own idea for a meatless menu item, the Hula Burger, which was essentially a standard McDonald's cheeseburger with a grilled slice of pineapple instead of a beef patty. Proving success truly does breed innovation. Kroc hated the thought of a fish sandwich, and as owner of McDonald's, he easily could have just gone with his own idea. But he seemed genuinely interested in choosing the option customers would like the most. Hey, you don't sell a trillion hamburgers by not giving the people what they want. So he decided to develop both ideas and have them battle it out for supremacy. Grown's proposed fish sandwich was fried halibut and tartar sauce on a bun, but halibut was too expensive at the time, so, much to his disappointment, he had to use Atlantic cod, a whitefish. To compensate for what he felt was a loss in taste, he added a half slice of cheese. Why a half slice? The obvious reason would be to save money, but on at least one occasion McDonald's has claimed it's a genuine bit of food science, delivering, quote, the perfect balance for the tangy tartar sauce and crispiness of the Filet-o-fish coating. According to the company itself, both sandwiches were placed on sale at selected locations on Good Friday in 1962. Kroc was wildly confident about the Hula Burger's chances, so it was probably a bit of a shock to him when they added up the receipts at the end of the day and sold 350 Filet-o-fishes compared to a measly 6 Hula Burgers. That's just under 60-1, in case you were wondering. As for the Hula Burger, Kroc would later recall, it was a giant flop. One customer said,
And they said, I like the hula, but where's the burger?
It's an honest question, but Kroc genuinely seemed to like the Hula Burger and frequently claimed that he still made the sandwich for himself at home. True to the terms of the competition, the Filet-o-fish would become the first ever addition to the original McDonald's menu. It had a limited launch in 1963 and was immediately a massive success. So in 1965, priced at 29 cents and powered by the mildly creepy slogan, "The fish that catches people," the Filet-o-fish showed up at McDonald's nationwide. For Grown, the Filet-o-fish turned out to be the fish that catches money. The sandwich improved business at his McDonald's so much, he decided to open a few more. And by a few, we mean he built 43 new locations that employed over 3,000 people, earning Grown over $60 million a year. Imagine what the payday would have been if he'd gotten in early enough to invent fish. One of the reasons McDonald's has never expanded its menu before is that it was too expensive. New foods that could be made in a way that fit the McDonald's brand were difficult to develop. For example, when working on the Filet-o-fish, the company had teams of chefs and scientists working round the clock to determine things like the thickness of the filet, the type of breading to be used, and the cooking time and temperature. It's not rocket science, it's much harder than that. This new food also meant maintaining relationships with fish suppliers, rejiggering shipping and storage practices, and training employees on new procedures. All of which was a big, costly pain in the bass, but ultimately well worth the effort. From atop his big new pile of Filet-o-fish profits, Kroc joked that since he made the fish sandwich for Roman Catholics, the Pope would change the rules. And it seemed like a pretty safe joke to make, because what were the odds the Pope would change centuries of Roman Catholic tradition at the exact same time the Filet-o-fish was hitting the market? Kroc couldn't see the future, or else he might have avoided that whole pineapple debacle, but sometimes ironic jokes come true. And sure enough, in 1965, the Second Vatican Council decided it was permissible to eat meat on Friday, as long as you didn't do it during Lent. Maybe the Pope preferred the Hula Burger. The Pope may have taken some of the wind out of the sails of the Filet-o-fish, but nothing could stop the sandwich's success. That's at least partially thanks to the power of advertising, an area in which McDonald's has always excelled.
You, me, try and change. Filet-o-fish, we're fixing
And over the decades, the company has taken several approaches to selling its fish sandwich. The most memorable campaign came in 1976 when they briefly introduced a McDonaldland-type mascot for the Filet-o-fish named Filet-o-fish. Hey, there are no bad ideas in a brainstorm. Phil dressed in a sailor's jacket and boater's hat and was from the Irish part of the ocean. He was also strangely dedicated to catching his fellow fish, carrying a fishing net and endorsing the slogan, Filet-o-fish says, "For a surprisingly good taste, try Filet-o-fish," implying Phil himself found the sandwich surprisingly good. Guess he didn't know any of these fish. However, Phil vanished almost as quickly as he appeared. In 1977, less than a year after Phil's introduction, McDonald's had already switched to a new campaign, and Filet-o-fish never returned. After McDonald's made a boatload of money selling the Filet-o-fish to Roman Catholics as a meatless option with a side of air quotes, every other fast food joint under the sun wanted in on that action. Wendy's has its premium cod filet sandwich, Burger King has the big fish sandwich, Popeyes has a seafood po' boy, White Castle has a fish slider, and even Dairy Queen has the Alaskan Pacific cod sandwich. And if you order from the secret menu, a sardine blizzard. Arby's promoted its new King's Hawaiian Fish Deluxe, Crispy Fish, and Fish and Cheddar sandwiches by taking a direct swipe at the Filet-o-fish on Twitter. Bojangles even joined the fray, the fast food chain, not the tap dancer, pumping up its Bojangler fish sandwich. Of course, none of this came close to the publicity stunt Red Robin tried way back in 2015, when they invited Pope Francis to visit the chain during Lent, offering to serve the Wild Pacific Crab Cake Burger to guests for free if he agreed to do a quick pop-up. But His Holiness ultimately declined. Maybe he's more of a Red Lobster guy. The Filet-o-fish is the only seafood item permanently on McDonald's menu, but it isn't the only fish product they ever tried. In 2013, Mickey D's tried out Fish McBites, which were essentially Fish McNuggets, only less fun to say. And apparently, nowhere near as tasty. Customers didn't McBite, and they were thrown back to the sea in less than a year.
Fishy, fishy!
As for the Filet-o-fish, it changed a bit over the decades. In 2001, McDonald's switched from using halibut to wild-caught Alaskan pollock. Halibut, as it turns out, matures slowly and is especially vulnerable to overfishing. The company made the change out of a concern over sustainable fishing practices. In 2013, the Golden Arches became the first, and as of now the only, national restaurant chain in the U.S. to adopt the Marine Stewardship Council Blue Eco Label, which is the most recognized certification for sustainable seafood in the world. Not bad, Ronald.
That's right!
The Filet-o-fish has also produced some interesting variations. Depending on where you live in the U.S., you can order it with specially formulated Old Bay tartar sauce, and in some Asian McDonald's, you can get it with wasabi. And of course, you can still get the good old classic Filet-o-fish, or a BK Big Fish, a Bojangler, or whatever other variation you prefer. Because these days, every fast food joint has a fish sandwich. Throughout its many years, the McDonald's menu has ebbed and flowed like a tide of beef and potatoes. What started as a simple 9-item selection eventually grew into a 3-digit catalog of America's finest and fastest cuisine. Well, fastest anyway. Still, you can't make a McMuffin without breaking a few eggs, and not every new McDonald's product has stood the test of time. Some of your faves may have even ridden off into the sunset with Mayor McCheese. So today, we're combing through the history of the McDonald's menu. Time to take Doc Brown's DeLorean to the drive-thru. In the late 1930s, before Maurice and Richard McDonald ever thought up their first speedy service restaurant, the two brothers owned and ran a hot dog stand. After a few years of saving, they were then able to open their first brick-and-mortar restaurant in California's San Bernardino in 1940. The brothers called this original car hop drive-in McDonald's Famous Barbecue, and their first menu featured their famous barbecued beef, ham, and pork. While burgers were listed beneath those highlighted barbecue selections, so too were tamales, cheesy french fries, chili, hamburger steaks, and peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. Add in some People magazines at the cashier, and that's a grocery store, friend. As the 40s dragged on, the brothers noticed that almost all of their profits came not from their featured barbecue, but from their burgers. So in 1948, they closed down their original operation to start fresh with a pared-down menu that sold only burgers, potato chips, ice cream, apple pie, coffee, and soda. It didn't take long for them to switch out the chips for fries, and heading into the 1950s, the McDonald's brothers were ready to turn their streamlined menu into a whole new brand. In 1953, the McDonald brothers opened their first ever speedy service location in Phoenix, Arizona. This location brought with it an all-new building style, designed specifically for an assembly line-like kitchen process. It likewise featured the brand's first ever set of golden arches. Most important, though, was the food. This location's 9-item menu advertised hamburgers, cheeseburgers, french fries, and malt shakes, along with 5 different beverages including coffee, Coke, root beer, milk, and a mysterious orange drink. And there's nothing more appealing at a fast food restaurant than a mystery. Shortly after, as the story goes, traveling milkshake machine salesman Ray Kroc saw what the McDonald's brothers were up to and opened a McDonald's location of his own in Des Plaines, Illinois, just 2 years later. For its grand opening, this location touted in advertisements that the McDonald's brand had already sold over 15 million hamburgers, a tally that is continued to this very day. And nothing controversial with Ray Kroc ever happened again. In 1963, McDonald's tried to cater to its Catholic customers fasting during Lent by making their first ever beefless burger, the Hula Burger, featuring 2 slices of cheese and a thick slice of pineapple between 2 buns. Ooh, wonder if you can dip it in the mystery orange drink. Meanwhile, in Ohio, McDonald's franchisee Lou Groen started testing out his own beefless sandwich made from fish, and he took his idea all the way to Ray Kroc himself. Reportedly, Ray Kroc loved the Hula Burger and thought fish would only stink up his restaurants. Still, he made a deal with Groen. If Groen's fish sandwiches outsold Kroc's beloved Hula Burgers, Groen's idea would find itself a place on the nationwide menu. The Hula Burger was thereafter decimated by the arrival of the Filet-o-fish sandwich, and in 1965, this fishy witch became the brand's first new permanent menu item. Kroc got rocked. This decade also saw the 1964 introduction of the McDouble hamburger, which only lasted until 1967 when it was pulled from the menu for the next 30 years. McDonald's also tried to fight off the fast food market gains made by the rapidly growing Arby's by, in 1968, releasing a roast beef sandwich of their own. Even though this new sandwich sold well, its creation required every McDonald's location to purchase costly new meat slicers, an extra expense that made the roast beef sandwich a short-lived clapback to the big brown hat. Still, the 1960s had one more trick up its sleeve for the burgeoning McDonald's empire. In 1967, McDonald's franchisee Jim Delegati made the world's first Big Mac cheeseburgers, and he sold them at his Uniontown, Pennsylvania location for 45 cents a pop. The Big Mac proved such a hit that, by the very next year, Delegati's creation got its national rollout, making the Keystone state-created Big Mac a keystone of the McDonald's franchise. The 1970s kicked off with California franchisee Al Bernardin's 1971 invention of the Quarter Pounder with cheese. Apparently, Bernardin thought the McDonald's other menu options were too bready, and he wanted a burger that put meat front and center. This heroic meat-forward option was so successful that in 1973, the Quarter Pounder was added to the national menu. Meanwhile, in 1972, another California franchisee, Herb Peterson, was set to make an even bigger splash in response to the demands of his early rising customers. That year, Peterson's invention, a little thing called the Egg McMuffin, entered test markets at 63 cents a sandwich. It spent 3 years coming and going from select locations before finally getting its own national release in 1975. And just 2 years later, McDonald's launched its first ever breakfast menu. This original menu, while keeping the Egg McMuffin front and center, featured hotcakes, scrambled eggs, sausage, hash browns, and danishes. That same year, Guatemala franchisee Yolanda Fernandez de Cofino began to make the company's first ever children's menu. While Fernandez de Cofino's original Menu Ronald featured a burger, a small fry, and a sundae, its first U.S. iteration, which launched nationally in 1979, also contained Keebler cookies, a Cracker Jack surprise toy, and a soda instead of a sundae. Still, not all was groovy in 1970s McDonald land. For a brief time, McDonald's sold the short-lived onion nugget and the reviled chopped beef steak sandwich, along with the McPizza, which would come and go from the menu like the dad in that Cats in the Cradle song. In the late 1970s, after the U.S. saw a nationwide decline in beef sales, McDonald's brought on famed chef Rene Arend to spice up their menu with some beefless alternatives. And one of Arend's first major contributions to the McDonald's menu was the ever-luxurious McRib. The McRib lasted from 1981 to 1985 before disappearing till 1989, when it then hung around until 2005. In the years since, it's come and gone like a pork-filled breeze, easy to enjoy, impossible to contain. Still, Arend had a few more tricks up his sleeve. While McDonald's didn't seem to care for his chicken pot pie idea, they did, in 1980, move forward with his idea for a crispy chicken sandwich, the McChicken. But in an uncharacteristic strikeout for the chef, this original McChicken proved to be a total flop. Luckily for the company, they already had something far bigger cooking on the back burner, and after 4 years of testing, it was finally ready for its national debut. Thus, in 1983, the Chicken McNugget became yet another enduring staple of the McDonald's menu. The McNugget's arrival booted the McChicken from the menu, which was resurrected in 1988 and has ever since lived in the tiny McNugget's far-reaching shadow. Shortly after the McNugget's arrival, McDonald's also tried their hand at lettuce and tomatoes, which historically had turned fast food buns into wet mush. Their solution? To make a bisected styrofoam container capable of holding buns and a meat patty on one side and lettuce, tomato, and pickles on the other. They called it the McDLT, and this build-it-yourself burger lasted 3 years on the menu before customers got tired of doing all that extra labor just to eat a sandwich. Also short-lived was the Cheddar Melt, which dropped nationwide in 1988 and featured a beef patty, grilled onions, and a creamy cheddar cheese on a rye bun. The Cheddar Melt performed terribly though, lasting less than a year. The 80s also saw the introduction of McDonald's first ever salads, which gave those lettuce and tomato munchers something else to chew on, all the way until the COVID-19 pandemic showed them the door. The 90s were a strange time for McDonald's, as they were for many of us. Aside from the 1991 successful introduction of the breakfast burrito and the 1998's wide release of the McFlurry, the company's corporate heads seemed to throw as much as they could against those red and white tiled walls, but nothing seemed to stick. The company kicked off 1990 with the introduction of Mighty Wings, which were just chicken wings with spicy breading. Mighty Wings proved relatively successful, and they lasted almost a decade and a half before being pulled from restaurants for good, aside from a brief resurgence in 2013. Then, as the early 90s kicked into gear, McDonald's came out with a whole assortment of doomed-from-the-start menu items, including chicken fajitas, catfish sandwiches, pasta, Hot Pocket-like McStuffins, and the delectable McLobster. During this time, to attract a more health-conscious crowd, a low-fat burger called the McLean Deluxe also came out, making it all the way to the early 2000s before also being pulled for good. Opposite the McLean Deluxe was McDonald's now infamous supersize option, which allowed customers to order a larger-than-large size until 2004, right around the time a certain movie came out. The 90s second half then saw the colossal $200 million marketing failure known as the Arch Deluxe. The Arch Deluxe was essentially a fancy quarter pounder on a potato bun, meant to launch a new premium burger lineup advertised specifically for adults. After lukewarm sales, though, it was discontinued in the year 2000. McDonald's kicked off the new millennium with the introduction of their fruit and yogurt parfaits. While these parfaits would last, like the salads before them, all the way until the COVID-19 pandemic, other items debuted in the early aughts would fail to launch. These included the McPhilly cheesesteak and the chicken flatbread, along with corn dogs and the always kinetic mixed salad shakers, which was, let's be honest here, just a salad in a cup. Then 2002 saw the creation of the now-defunct Dollar Menu, while 2003 saw the introduction of one of the McDonald's newest mainstays, the sweet and savory McGriddle. As the decade wore on, the company also released the on-again, off-again chicken selects, the sometimes resurrected snack wraps, the short-lived but popular McSkillet burritos, and the Southern-style chicken sandwich, which came back in 2019 under a new McCrispy identity. Then, at the height of the aughts, McDonald's renovated their U.S. restaurants to at last be capable of serving their already decades-old international McCafe lineup of lattes, mochas, espressos, and cappuccinos. Around this time, the company once again tried its hand at a premium burger. This time, they called it the Angus Burger, and a whole Angus lineup would live out nearly 4 years of premium status on the McDonald's menu before ultimately getting pulled. In the 2010s, McDonald's introduced all-day breakfast, their short-lived buttermilk chicken tenders, and a lineup of bacon-centered products, including cheesy bacon fries, the Quarter Pounder bacon, and the Big Mac bacon. All the while, to maintain a profit, the company's Dollar Menu had to become the Dollar Menu and More, which then eventually turned into McPick 2 before settling into its current variation, the $1, $2, $3 menu, which makes you sound like an auctioneer. With the 2020 onset of the COVID-19 pandemic, McDonald's had to scale back its operations. Many fan favorites were temporarily cut from the roster, including all-day breakfast, their lineup of salads and grilled chicken sandwiches, and a variety of other, more cumbersome menu items. Over time, many of these items have made their triumphant return, while others, like the company's salads and their snack wraps, evolved into something entirely new, like a Pokemon, which have been known to appear at McDonald's. The Play Place, the Clown, the Happy Meal, those weird aluminum ashtrays. For many, McDonald's evokes feelings of childhood nostalgia. But beneath the glow of those golden arches, a darker, more terrifying truth lies in wait, ready to hamburglarize your delicious memories of their youthful innocence. Today, we're going to expose secret facts about McDonald's. Okay, time to blow the lid off all of Uncle O'Grimacy's DUIs. While in recent years, Ronald McDonald has been relegated to a desk job at the McDonald's Corporation, the clown played an integral role in growing the company's image. The grease-painted burger huckster first showed up in 1963 advertisements that played exclusively in the Washington, D.C. area.
Introducing the world's newest, silliest, and hamburger-eatingest clown, Ronald McDonald.
Apparently, D.C. has a big clown demographic. Ronald must have tickled the hearts and minds of our nation's leaders because the ad campaign was a huge success. It launched Ronald McDonald into the national spotlight, though the company dropped the original actor who portrayed him, allegedly for being overweight. Wouldn't want to give people the idea that eating at McDonald's stretches your pants out. They wanted a thin and active clown to sell their burgers, and so they recast the part and broadcasted the new Ronald to TV sets across the nation. To this day, the company doesn't acknowledge that Ronald is a character portrayed by multiple actors, and they instead refer to him as a single individual. When asked how Ronald could possibly be everywhere all at once, the clown put out an official statement for himself. "If I told you my secrets, they wouldn't be secrets anymore. If these Play Place walls could talk." French fries are a dependable treat for any vegetarian looking to scarf down some delicious McCalories with their meat-eating friends. The popular burger sidekick menu item is nothing but potatoes, salt, and lots of oil. What could possibly go wrong? As it turns out, plenty. From the company's 1940 inception and during the 50 years that followed, McDonald's cooked its fries in beef tallow. In addition to being extremely tasty, beef tallow is just a longer way of saying cow fat, which, as we know, is not generally part of a vegetarian diet. A decades-long movement against saturated fat eventually made the company reconsider this practice. In 1990, McDonald's announced they would make the change to cook their fries in vegetable oil. Vegetarians across the country rejoiced. At last, they too could keep their eyes on their fries. Little did these meatless fry lovers know, beef was still hiding among the fries' natural ingredients. Since a beef extract was added to the fries before being flash frozen and distributed to restaurants, FDA regulations did not require the ingredient to be specifically listed. In 2001, this little-known secret became public, and the public was outraged. For its part, McDonald's claims to have never said their fries were vegetarian. That didn't stop various religious groups from suing and successfully settling with the corporation for supersized amounts of money. Hey, speaking of supersized, in the 2004 documentary Super Size Me, filmmaker Morgan Spurlock set out to eat nothing but McDonald's for 30 straight days.
Every 8-year-old's dream right now that I'm getting ready to fulfill.
Over those 30 days, he gained 18 pounds, became increasingly ill, and began to show signs of liver damage, a series of ailments usually reserved for the holiday season.
My advice to you as a physician is that you've got to stop. You're pickling your liver.
While Super Size Me has been shown in health classes across America ever since its release, the film did a lot more than give teachers an excuse to nurse their hangovers. It brought about record losses for the McDonald's Corporation. The Golden Arches did away with their famous larger-than-life supersize option just 6 weeks after the film's release. The corporation claimed that the timing was coincidental, but seeing as supersizing has been around since 1987, not even Mayor McCheese himself believed them. They then began selling fresh fruits and organic milk, and they created their short-lived Every Step Counts campaign, which gave away a free McFitbit, stepometer, with every salad purchase. Speaking of short-lived campaigns, the McAfrica was pitched to the public during the 2002 Olympic Games as an authentic African recipe. It was a burger with cheese, tomato, and lettuce, all wrapped up in a pita. While an ongoing famine in southern Africa would have been enough reason for uproar over the product's launch, the real kicker was where the McAfrica was released. It was a Norwegian exclusive. Aid groups everywhere disparaged the marketing campaign for being poorly timed. Norway is one of the world's wealthiest countries, and many saw the McAfrica as a slap at those who were starving half a world away. McDonald's apologized and permitted aid groups to place collection boxes within its restaurants, but still allowed the ill-advised campaign to run its course. What's more, they launched the product again to similar dismay during the 2008 Beijing Olympics. Maybe they should have brought back the McSalad shaker instead. It's no secret that McDonald's ice cream machines seem to be perpetually out of service.
Can I just get one vanilla ice cream cone?
It actually just broke.
The machines have a 4-hour self-cleaning process that puts them out of commission nightly. This must make them spick and span, right? Well, maybe if soft-serve scoops of unnameable gunk are your thing. Current and past McDonald's employees have taken to the internet to blow the whistle on the funky dessert dispensers louder than Officer Big Mac in a deadly intersection. Sometimes, though, not even the staff knows just how dirty the machines have gotten. In one such instance, a Piqua, Ohio ice cream machine went rogue and sent several Sunday lovers to the hospital. A mechanical issue within the machine caused Staphylococcus to grow unchecked and uncleaned. Over 120 people were sickened by the contamination, including one woman whose kidneys shut down. McDonald's faced a predictable McFlurry of lawsuits as a result, although the fast food giant insisted it was an isolated incident.
At McDonald's, we do it all for you.
Tell that to the judge, you smooth-talking clown. Speaking of lawsuits, it should come as no surprise that America's largest fast food chain has had its fair share of them. In 1956, Earl and Dorothy McDonald, no relation to the clown, opened the McDonald's Family Restaurant in Fairbury, Illinois. Their son, Ronald McDonald, again no relation to the clown, eventually inherited the family business. In 1993, the clown showed up in town, and a McDonald's fast food restaurant opened just down the road. The McDonald's Corporation allegedly proceeded to bombard the McDonald family with letters and phone calls, threatening the family over potential trademark violations. The McDonald's Family Restaurant was made to remove any inclusion of the apostrophe S from their marketing materials. It had to be made clear that they were strictly a McDonald's restaurant, not a McDonald's. Just 3 years later, though, the new Fairbury McDonald's went under, leaving Ronald McDonald, once again the real guy, not the mascot, the only Ronald McDonald left standing. Shortly thereafter, the McDonald's Family Restaurant got their S back. The McDonald's had beaten the clown back for the time being. While this may have been a big win for the little guy, it wasn't the win that captured the public's attention. America instead focused on a little lawsuit in Albuquerque, where a woman attempted to sue the McDonald's Corporation after she spilled a cup of McCoffee and scalded herself. The suit was so well known that it even attracted the attention of the popular sitcom Seinfeld, which aired 2 episodes mocking what the media portrayed as a symptom of lawsuit culture gone awry.
It's an infringement on your constitutional rights. It's outrageous, egregious, preposterous. It's definitely preposterous.
However, it was anything but a frivolous lawsuit. 79-year-old Stella Liebeck purchased a coffee at a McDonald's drive-thru. While parked, she attempted to add cream and sugar to the burning hot beverage. The coffee spilled into her lap, resulting in grievous injuries. The coffee had been so hot that Liebeck needed skin grafts and hospital visits that cost her an estimated $20,000 in medical costs and lost income. The courts awarded her $3 million in punitive damages, and the public was outraged. Little did they know that Liebeck's was one of 700 similar suits brought against McDonald's for its excruciatingly and unnecessarily hot coffee.
I was not in it for the money. I was in it because I wanted to bring the temperature down so that other people would not go through the same thing I did.
In case you haven't figured it out yet, public uproars are commonplace. Everybody loves a good uproar, especially about their favorite burger joint, so here's another one to get you worked up over. In 2011, an ABC News expose mortified audiences everywhere by introducing them to an ingredient their bellies were already well acquainted with. Lean, finely textured beef is a beef product made from ground-up defatted cow parts that have been treated with ammonia. It's been used as filler to beef up beef products in restaurants across America. Back in 2002, microbiologist Gerald Zernstein dubbed the product pink slime in a USDA agency email. The name stuck, but pink slime hysteria wouldn't come about for another decade, catalyzed by ABC's report. McDonald's was just one of many corporations to face public scrutiny over its use of pink slime. Within months of the expose, McDonald's announced they would no longer use the ingredients in any of their products. Once more, they claimed that the timing of the decision was merely coincidental. The creator of Pink Slime, Beef Products Incorporated, or BPI if you're slimy, sued ABC for defamation over their expose. ABC apparently settled with BPI, paying the company at least $177 million. Despite these payouts, ABC stands by their Pink Slime reporting to this day, and McDonald's hasn't used the ingredients since 2011. Speaking of questionable meat practices, McDonald's has stuck by some pretty unsavory friends in the past. A supplier of theirs, the Shanghai Husi food plant, was found in 2014 to be engaged in unsanitary practices. A Chinese broadcast showed employees handling meat with their bare hands, reusing meat that had fallen to the floor, and even processing expired meat to maximize their profits. It was like an Upton Sinclair reboot for modern audiences. 5 people were arrested over the matter, but not before the tainted meat reached McDonald's restaurants in both China and Japan, resulting in chicken McNuggets being pulled from all Hong Kong locations. Other fast food chains ended their business with Husi, but Mickey D's stood by the company since no other factories were found to be in violation of the health code. They've been McNugget buddies ever since. For over 30 years, gamblers nationwide have taken a brief reprieve from football and lottery tickets to turn their attention to the biggest game of all, McDonald's Monopoly. What began in 1987 as a one-time $40 million sweepstakes has since turned into an annual $500 million extravaganza. Customers buy food, peel stickers, and win big. At least, that's how it's supposed to go. The unlucky customers who played McDonald's Monopoly in the 1990s never stood a chance. This is because Jerry Jacobson, known to FBI investigators as Uncle Jerry, was put in charge of the game's security.
Security? You're looking at it. It's a joke. I'm the midnight date man. I'm the commandant.
He'd watch the winning tickets get printed and transport them to factories across the country. Only, not all of the stickers would reach their final destinations. During his 12 years on the job, Jacobson handed out winning tickets totaling over $24 million in prizes to friends, family, and even an alleged mafia contact. The FBI only caught on after someone called in with an anonymous tip. Upon further investigation, they found that a supersized number of Monopoly winnings were being redeemed in the Jacksonville area. It took 25 agents nearly a year and a half to bring the scheme down, leading to the convictions of over 50 people. Listen, McDonald's Monopoly is serious business. After some quick PR stunts and a few more million-dollar giveaways, McDonald's resumed its Monopoly game and washed its hands clean of the fiasco. As for Uncle Jerry, he'd spend over 3 years locked up in federal prison for his little scheme. Word is he did not pass go or collect $200.